tonight we are here with another beautiful concept of the Laku. And with that concept, we are going to have my good buddy, my co-host, to introduce himself before we go across to our special guest this evening. Good evening to you, Adams.
Good evening, Cecil. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight to interact once again and to be part of the LACO program.
Mm-hmm.
It's always a very interesting one. Last week we had Dr. Stenberg Henry, and we had a very interesting discussion, and we also looked at the 29th of May 1979, which was another very interesting one.
Before that, we looked into 1973 with the situation when the present president, in the person of Charles Savary, was housebound.
Oh, house arrest.
Yeah.
We looked at that aspect of it too.
Yes. And out of this discussion, we developed this program that we'll be having tonight to deal with the issue of literacy that's in your place.
Very interesting. I'll be listening attentively and participating because that is a very interesting topic. One always talks about that. And as you can see, I've been reading. Let me tell you what I've been reading. Win, The Art of Debating, Every Persuading and Argument, Public Speaking by Mehdi Hassan. And it's a very interesting area. And one of the areas I stopped on was attentive listening. That is a very critical aspect when you talk about any aspect of language. Attentive listening is a very critical component of it. So I'll be very patient and I will be listening as your guests interact with us.
Okay, so first thing first, just want to inform the listeners out there that they can call in at any time when we say that we are opening the lines. But before we hear the voice of Dr. Cyrilla Ansem, her daughter will be doing the official introduction of her mom. Good evening to you, Miss. Tell us your first name again. Good evening. Good evening. Yes. I am trying to see what's going on. Let's see if we can control this. Something is going on that is not supposed to be on air. Let me see if I can. You know when Adams in this special dispensation, mm-hmm. I trying to do my best, and let me see. Yes, I try to go to the YouTube, but it seems as if my cursor is not giving me that assistance that is required. And I'm trying to really get this.
Well, what you're trying to get, let me just read.
Mm-hmm.
I just talk about critical listening. Critical listening is about going beyond hearing to mentally engage with what's being said. It's a very dynamic process where you consciously absorb, comprehend, and evaluate the information given to you by a speaker in real time.
Mm-hmm.
You hear that?
Mm-hmm.
So when you listen, you have to be able to comprehend it in real time. So as you're interacting with your guest, I'll be comprehending and evaluating in real time.
You see, the problem I have with the social media, someone can be on the system that you're on, and while you are on, the person is actually managing it for you at home. And I'm trying to see how I can manage my own right here. Mm-hmm. It's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to say to you, Dennis, go on to YouTube. Go down to YouTube, please. And please pause. Yes, please pause the music that is on because I will not be hearing. Thank you very much. And that's where the problem was. All right? No, you still have to. You have to pause Bob Marley for me, please. Yes, pause it for me, please. Yes. Right. Now it's clear. Thank you very much. So we can now go back to the screen that we were on, which gives us the Zoom. So we are now on live. Good evening to to the Ansem family?
Hi, good evening. And to go along with critical thinking, there's something called active listening that we use in therapy. So I encourage all our listeners this evening to practice some active listening where you're listening, you are engaging, you are internalizing because we have some good information for everyone this evening. Hi,
Mhm. Go ahead.
yes, my name is Hadassah Joseph. I am Cyrilla Ansem's daughter, and I'm going to introduce my mom. Dr. Cyrilla Ansem is a linguist and literacy technical trainer, and she is also a graduate of the University of West Indies, where she acquired her bachelor's in literacy, a master's in English, and her doctorate in leadership in higher education. She has been an educator for over 42 years and has served as a primary, secondary, and tertiary level in the Commonwealth of Dominica. She has assisted the Ministry of Education in the construction of language arts curriculum and literacy workshops and has been awarded Teacher of the Year in 2008. Dr. Cyrilla Ansem is the wife of Elder Gregory Ansem and the mother of Hadassah, which is me, and my dear sister Elisheba. She is the proud grandmother of Isaiah, Malachi, and Natalie. In her leisure time, she enjoys reading her Bible, reading motivational books, listening and dancing to spiritual music, praising Abba Yahweh. And I would like to add gardening, and she is a great co host to a bi weekly podcast every Saturday. I am so proud of my mom. And mom, I can't wait to hear all the good information you have to share with us this evening. Welcome.
Thank you so very much, daughter of Dr. Cyrilla Ansem. And she said that Cyrilla is married to, we call him Kwa.
Well, I must tell you that I know the lady very well. She worked with me too when I was education officer for the West. So I know her husband. He's also a tailor by profession, and he also enjoys playing
Cricket.
softball cricket.
Yes.
And I know you've played many matches with him.
We played on the same side.
Well, good. And so he is a very well. They have the house in I think Cadenfield there, right? And he's a very nice guy, and they're Yahweh people. So I know the lady quite well.
Well, I know her myself quite well. I would like to say that I'm sure that we're about around the same age group. I have known her in the early days. I think she went to Rosa Girls School, if memory serves me right. I'll be asking her some of those questions tonight. So just want to say good evening to you, Dr. Cyrilla Ansem.
Shalom and blessed night. Erev Tov.
We are here tonight and I'm excited.
So am I.
All right.
And thank you, Hadassah, for a great introduction.
I want to first find out from you, because we're going to be talking about the Creole and language. What is the word? Leisure or leisure?
It can be anyone. It depends on where you come from and how you use it, like tomato, tomato.
Okay. So it depends. And that's why we're going to be talking about the whole issue of Creole. Now, Dr. Ansem, I would like to request of you. I know your daughter has done some introduction of you professionally, but I would also like to find out from you where you're from, your siblings, your mom, your dad, so some people can have a better understanding as to who you are, where you came from, and the struggles you may have gone through to be where you are today.
Okay. I'm Cyrilla Esther Prince Anselm, originally from River Street. So my River Street people will be hearing my voice tonight. My mom is Margaret Prince from River Street. My dad is deceased now. He was Ralph Prince. He was an Antiguan. Yes, he came to Dominica when he was a young boy. So he was an Antiguan. My husband, as you all have heard, is the Gregor Ansem, and Mr. Adams said his name is Kwa, or some people call him Tigasson. So I guess he's well known. I think your memory serves you right, because I did go to the Rosa Girls School. Well, prior to that, I went to the Rosa Mixed Infant School, and then to the Rosa Girls School, then the Convent High School, And then I went on to the Dominica Teachers College and to the University of the West Indies, where I spent some time there, which I really enjoyed. Mhm.
Now I know that you have your siblings, so you can tell us who your siblings are.
Well, my siblings, I have two brothers, Samuel and Gideon. I have a sister, Catherine. That's about it.
And I'm sure that you're able to tell us, before we get into the meat of our matter, I'm sure that you're able to tell us a little bit of your growing up in River Street.
Well, the thing with my growing up in River Street, I was in my own little world. And my own little world consisted of reading a lot of books, listening to Radio Paradise. I'm a believer, faith-based person. I am a Yahwist now. I enjoyed, as you heard, enjoyed singing and dancing to the praises of Abaya. But when I grew up in River Street, I grew up in my own little world. I love the library. I love books. I love reading. Yes, I interacted with my neighbors. As you know, at that point in time, everybody was cordial and well-mannered. But I had my own little niche that I existed within. And I think that kind of propelled me into the person I am today, because I saw books as a way to just know the world, as a portal to the world.
No, Doc. While that is so, I want to find out from you, while going to the Rosa Girls School more precisely, I want to find out from you, what was your thought process? Knowing that you came from River Street, there are other boys and girls who came just around the same area, Hillsborough Street, Cox Street, Bath Road. What was your thought process in achieving greatness later on in life?
Well, the thing with me, as I said, being a child, I enjoyed the river baths. We enjoyed going for guavas at Bath Estate. Well, at that time, there were no houses. I enjoyed playing a game of skip with my peers, some hopscotch on the road. I enjoyed that part. But I also, as I told you, I enjoyed reading. And in reading, you traverse the world. You saw things in a different light. So there was this thing about me where I knew there was more than the little environment that I grew up in. So I always set my sights on knowing more, learning more.
But you would have lived in a community on River Street, that small area between Independence Street now, at the time it was Queen Mary Street, and Bath Road, around that area there. It's very populated with boys. How did you manage in surpassing so many of the students around your age at that time in that area of River Street?
Well, I must say, at that time, River Street had quite a bit of students who were bright, because from River Street we had a lawyer, we had a doctor, we had policemen, we had nurses. There were lots of students that were bright as well, So I would not just say it was just me. There were lots of other students, because at that time parents took an interest in their children, and even if they were not as literate as we were, but they ensured that you went to your books, you did your homework, and they would ask you question, how was school today? And this is maybe one of the things that are lacking, or one of the things that is lacking, because sometimes the children come home today and nobody really checks them out, So we were good. We were good back in the day.
How were you?
People.
How were you at that time able to divorce your education from your religious belief? Because in those days, going to school would have been a challenge. Really going to school and having other denomination, and you might just be almost the only person belonging to a particular denomination. How were you able to divorce education and religion to ensure that you surpass?
Well, as a matter of fact, I did not divorce it. It was part and parcel of me. I'm a faith-based person, and my faith is my rock. Wherever I go, I let you know who I am, who I represent. I represent Abaya. He is the one who has kept me over the years. He is the one who is just fueling me. He is the one who's given me the strength to continue to excel. So wherever I go, whether it be at the University of the West Indies, whether it's in a working environment, everybody knows. You notice when I came on, the first thing I said to you was shalom.
Yes.
Peace be unto you.
Yes.
Even at school, my students know me. Whenever I enter a classroom, that's what they would say, shalom, shalom.
Wow, wow. That is beautiful. That is beautiful. That is so sweet. In a sense that they have learned another language.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Tonight on the LACO program, we are going to discuss how literacy is impacted by the Creole language. That for me is a very beautiful subject matter that we need to deal with because we have gotten confused in understanding what is Creole. So first let me ask you, how did Creole originated?
Okay, so let me just give you a definition of Creole. And Creole is a mother tongue that is formed from contact with European languages and local languages, most of them spoken by slaves. Or you can say it's a product of the mixed languages from the European colonizers, English, French, Spanish, or Portuguese, and the West African languages. As you know, we came all the way from Africa, our ancestors. So when they came here, they heard the languages spoken by the European colonizers. Okay? And we have what we call a pidgin. That's how the Creoles began. A pidgin language is defined as a grammatically simplified means of communication that emerges when speakers of different languages need to communicate with each other. So you would have the Portuguese wanting to communicate with, let's say, somebody else, and this person would have to listen to them speak. And what do you know? Out of what the Portuguese is saying, out of what the African is saying, there would emerge a pidgin. And the Creole language is a pidgin that has expanded in structure and vocabulary, and it has the characteristics of other languages. It has its own syntax, which is its grammar, its semantics, which is the meaning, its morphology, its words, the words and phonology, sounds. Now, in the Caribbean, there are a number of Creole languages. And it's funny that when we say Creole languages, we only think of French Creole, which is patois, what we call patois in Dominica. But there are many Creole languages. You have French Creole, of course. We have English Creoles. We have Spanish Creoles. We have Portuguese Creoles. We have Dutch Creoles. And maybe you would even find some more. Okay? Along with the Creole language, each country has an official language. And the Creole language may not have anything to do with the official language. Like if you look at St. Lucia has a dominant Creole language, which is the French Creole, yet it is an English-based country. Creole languages are slowly being lost in Dominica. We call that, as linguists, we call that linguicide. And in Dominica, our French Creole, it is slowly disappearing from us, slowly disappearing because, unfortunately, we did not pass it on to our children. In Haiti, there's the Haitian Creole, named as an official language along with the French. So Creoles are not just tossed aside. In Haiti, it's one of the official languages, okay? And I must say, in Dominica, we have 3 Creole languages. We have the French Creole, which people call patois. We have 2 English Creoles. There is one that is spoken in Roseau and its environs. And sometimes we go into denial and we say, no, boy, we don't have any Creole in Dominica, any English Creole in Dominica. But I will give you a few words so you will ask yourself if you normally use those words.
No, boy,
so we have the English. So we have the English Creole, which is spoken in Roseau, and we also have another English Creole, which is spoken in Marigot, Wesley, Clifton, and it is called Cocoy. Yeah, Woodford Hill, it's called Cocoy. So we have these two Creole. In the Caribbean, we have the Barbados Creole called Bajan. We have the Jamaican Patois. And let me tell you something, these Jamaicans, they are proud of their Creole. We have the TNT Creole called the Trinidadian Creole, the Virgin Islands called the Virgin Islands Creole. And as you go through the Caribbean, in Antigua, you will have the Antiguan Creole. These Creoles are here. Now, for those of us who say, well, I have never known that we had any English Creole in Dominica. I always tell my students, that's how I start off. I did see the man. And when I say I did see the man, they look at me like, I said, isn't that what we say? I did see the man.
I don't like you.
Uh-huh. And we say, I don't want nothing. I don't want nothing you have. You can't hear me? And sometimes we forget ourselves. And in school, we say, sit down, child. So here are some prominent words in our Dominican Creole. We say without instead of without. The standard says without, but in the Dominican English Creole, we say without. We say pumpkin. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but we say pumpkin. We don't say pumpkin, we say pumpkin. We say September. Well, we have cap. Put the cap on your head. In the standard, we would have been told, please put the cap on your head. We say garden. Flim. That was a difficult one to say as a child. In the standard, we say film. Film. It's like it rolls over your tongue. But in the Creole English, we say flim. Then there's the famous D. You can't be a Dominican and not say D. The man, the house, the girl. There's well, thanks. How are you? I well, thanks. There's problem. Something happened to the R.
So hold on a
I
while.
don't know.
So hold on a while. That's very interesting, because we have been hearing for a long time, even when we speak about the World Creole Music Festival, we have been hearing people speaking of the Creole language, you mean French. And here it is, you are helping us to understand that there is also the English Creole, which we speak and which many other countries have their own English Creole. That is fascinating to learn tonight.
Yes. And as Dominicans, the TH poses a bit of a problem. So we don't say whiff. We say whiff. Whiff. In Antigua, they say wit. But in Dominica, we say whiff. And we say teeth. Go and brush your teeth. You don't hear, go and brush your teeth. No, if you hear that, you look at the person like, go and brush your teeth. Then, of course, there is mother and father. You also have union. I am going to the credit union. And don't tell somebody they're not going to the credit union. There's this famous one, liquor. Liquor. It doesn't matter whether there are two T's, but we say liquor. And of course, because the TH poses the problem, we say mouth. Close your mouth. Instead of, please close your mouth. So we have these Creole words. Of course, the English Creole has its peculiarities as well. It engages the double negative.
But Doc, before we go, these are English Creole, and earlier on you made mention of standards or the standard English, and you're talking about our Creole. At what time do we find ourselves having to speak the standard English that will warrant us to be in the society? At what time? What place?
I am happy you asked that question, because if you know our history very well, you will know that Dominica changed hands many times. Okay? We had the English took possession in 1627. Then in 1632, Dominica was a de facto French colony. In 1759, it was captured by the English again. In 1778, it went back to the French. And in 1783, it went to the English. The French attempted to invade in 1795 and 1805 before withdrawing, leaving Britain in charge. And Dominica became a British colony from 1763 all the way to 1978. So all the time we were changing hands. One time you had, can you imagine, at one time you're supposed to speak French. If you do not try to speak the French, that would be problems. Then when the English took over, no more French. We do not want to hear you speaking any French. You are supposed to try to speak the English. So here is where this thing came across. So even in some of our Creole expressions, they are direct translation of the French Creole. When we say la pluie qu'a tombé, when we translate that directly, the rain is falling. And no matter how you try to get the student in the standard to say, it is raining. Rain falling. Because we are coming straight from the French Creole, la pluie qu'a tombé. And a lot of our ancestors, they did a lot of direct translation to the point where sometimes some of them didn't know the difference between he and she. They would say he. Because when we say,
Doc, sorry.
You know when we say, just a minute, you know when we say ikavini, we haven't said the gender.
Yes.
Ikavini.
Yeah.
So some of the older ancestors, they would say he coming. And you're wondering, what is it, a man or a woman that is coming? So they were doing a direct translation here.
So are you saying, Doc, that the problem that we are having now in terms of our English language is because of the French and the English moving back and forth all of the times, and so we have found our elders speaking a particular language, and we found ourselves capturing that language that they spoke and maintain as a Creole English?
Well, language on a whole is not constant. Language evolves gradually, continually. Every year, there are new words that are added to the language because there are certain words. I am not a French Creole speaker per se. I learned it not because I was taught, but because I picked up little pieces here and there. And there are certain words that will be spoken in the French Creole that I have to ask an older person, what is the meaning of that? Like my good friend, Mrs. Wicks, she gave me a word once and she told me, la podiche. And for the life of me, I said, but what is this, la podiche? And only to find out in the English is the apothecary, a druggist. So yes, we are hearing the words. Yes, we know a little patois, a little French Creole, but there are different levels. And now that we have the Haitians coming over into Dominica, there are even different styles of French Creoles that are among us. Because some of them, they shorten the words, some of our words are longer. But getting back to the English Creole, we have some peculiarities of the English Creole that I need you to know. In the English Creole, we entertain double negatives. So that is why we say, I don't want none. I don't want nothing. But in the standard, you cannot use double negatives. The standard only makes space for one negative. So you have to throw out one. So you would have to say, I don't want anything, or I want nothing. But in the Creole, we say, I don't want nothing. We are using two. So can you imagine a child who is steeped in the Dominica English Creole, and that child is a customer saying, I don't want nothing. Then you ask them to write a composition. What do you expect them to put? I don't want nothing. Now, this teacher who is in the class has to find a way to liaise between the two languages because they are languages. And let me tell you, the Dominica English Creole is the L1 for a lot of students. And when I say L1, it means it's the first language. So when we come to school and the teacher is saying, we are English people, we need to speak English, sometimes they forget there is a fine line between that. No, we are not. We are Creole people. We are Creole people. English is our standard language. It's the language of formality. It's the language of tests and business and whatever. The Creole is the language of familiarity, intimacy. Imagine going to tell someone a joke and you are coming, good day. Could I tell you something? I saw a man last night, He was going to somebody looking like you. What's wrong with you? But you come and boy, let me tell you something, eh? Last night I see Mr. going down the road, and if you see speed he had, boy, he had speed. Right away you catch their attention because you are speaking the language of familiarity. So there's nothing wrong per se with the Creole. It's how you use it and when you use it. It's almost like how you wear your clothes. There are certain garments you use for formal dressing or formal occasion. If you're going to the beach, you go in your beach clothes. You're going in your yard, in your garden, you go in your garden clothes. But there's nothing wrong with the garden clothes, nothing wrong with the beach clothes. It's where you use it. So as I said, double negatives, that is one that is entertaining the Creole. We also have what we call in linguistics reduplication. In the Creole, we say your head big, 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 because we do not use adjectives like it's extremely big. In the standard, we say it's extremely big. It's humongous. No, the Creole is a bit more graphic. So the Creole will say your head big, 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 big. See one little man, eh? And sometimes I count when I would be in class and the children are speaking and I'm counting and I'm grabbing my little notebook and I'm writing. They say, Miss is writing what we are saying. So that reduplication is used. And this came all the way from Africa, all the way. And the Jamaicans love it because they say you too licky. And you too fanky. They love it. They like doubling whatever it is that they are saying. Okay. Now, another great peculiarity of the Creole English is the absence of the copula. And when we say the copula, we are talking about maybe when you went to class, they would tell you the helping verb. So in the standard, we say he is coming, we are going. But in the Creole, we don't have time for any is and are. We say he come in, she go in. That is the peculiarity. That is one of the trademarks of the Creole.
Doc. You're getting me excited.
Relax.
Because you are saying it in such a way, in terms of its simplicity among us as a people. And as you're saying it, I recognize the fact that even we here, as broadcasters, we find ourselves not using the standard.
Well, let me tell you that. As the doctor is speaking, you see, when we teach English, I always suggest that English should be taught as a second language.
You are smart. I'm coming to this part. And do you know, as an English educator, whenever I started off, especially with the grade 6, that was my first lesson. I always taught English as a second language. And when you're giving your first language and they conjugate the verbs and they say, I sing, you sing, we, he, she, or it sings, we sing, you sing, they sing. That's my first lesson. And I usually tell my students, if you can grab that the he, she, or it always takes an S, you have this thing on the lock. Because the Creole is fighting with them. In Dominica, we say he sing, and she sing, it sing. And don't tell us there's an S being attached there. There is no S in the Creole. So what I normally tell them, I would tell my students, you see these three there? Third person singular. The he, she, or it, these are troublemakers. They are not like the ordinary ones. Everybody agrees, I sing, you sing, we sing, they sing. But these three, he, she, or it, look out for them. Just go by yourself and get an S and tack it on. And from the time you can give them that S, sometimes ES, sometimes IES, you're good to go. And trust me, they put that in their head and they go to college. And you can't beat them in subject-verb agreements because they have that down. Anyway, that's in the standard. But back to the Creole English. The past tense, oh my goodness. The past tense. The Creole has its own past tense. I see the man. Now that I see the man, sometimes we use a past tense marker to tell us whether it's in the past tense. So we would say something like, I see him yesterday. So yesterday would tell you, I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about in the past. Some would say, I did see him. I did see him. So that would tell you, that would confirm that is in the past tense. And a lot of the students have problems with the past. So that is why, as Mr. Adams said, I would teach it as a second, I would teach English as a second language. So I would use the I did see the man, and I would say, how would we say that in the standard? And they would say, oh, miss, I saw the man. I say, very good. Both of them are correct, but one is in the standard, the other one is in the Creole English. Now, don't talk about the plural, the boys and them. Why do we always have to stick an and them at the end? I see the boys and them. Now, the standard doesn't have any and them. The standard would say, I saw the boys. But in the Creole, we tack on the plural marker and them to let you know it's more than one. And there's a funny piece that I just love. We call it in linguistics front focusing. In the Creole, when we want to put the emphasis on what we are talking about, we say, is she that come? Is she? Or if we want to put it on come, we say, is come she come? So in the first sentence, I wanted you to know, came. Is she that come? She. In the other one, she didn't go. Is come, she come. And we do it all the time and we're not even aware that is what we are doing. This is called front focusing. Okay? Now, the Kokoi. We don't want to leave the Kokoi outside because, as I told you, my dad is Antiguan. I'm half Antiguan. So Antiguan Creole is quite natural to me. So in the Antiguan, in Marigot Wesley, my people from Marigot Wesley, have Huawei up there, they would say, Mimi see, how are you, Muma Day? And if you hear them and you're in Roseau, you might wonder, what in the world are they saying? And all they're saying is, where is your mother? So we have these Creoles, In the Creole, we have 3 strains. We have what we call the basilect. We have the mesolect and the acrolect. So even when people think they are speaking standard English, highfalutin English, sometimes they are just in the mesolect. Let me give you an example. In the basilect, we say, you come into the party. You come in. There's no copula there. So you know you are dead Creole. You come into the party. In the mesolect, we will say, you are coming. And we feel good because we are using the helping verb. You are coming. But that's still not the standard. The standard would say, are you coming to the party? So this is the acrolect all the way. It's called a continuum because you go from one to the other. Okay? So in the basilect, which is at the lower end, you would say, you come into the party now? You come in? The other person who is a little bit more educated, quote unquote, might say, you are coming? And we say, oh, that one good, man. She can speak the English well. But remember, I said the standard would go a bit further because it's interrogative. So the standard would say, are you coming to the party? So when we hear people speaking the Creole, we cannot turn down our noses because we are all Creole people. I remember once I was working at Goodwill Primary and a teacher came, but she seemed to love the standard. And maybe she did not know how to separate the two. So she came into the schoolyard and she told us, I'm burnt. So we are looking at her skin to see what burned her. I'm burnt. When we are looking, we're not seeing anything. So the time we say, girl, come out there, you burn out. How you burn out? Don't tell us you are burnt. Because she was trying to be so standard, you know. So she said that she's burnt. We are wondering, where's the burn? You have no burn on your body, you know? So it has its place. It has its place. You want to tell a good joke? My goodness, that's what the Creole is for. The Creole is for Familiarity is for intimacy. Okay, so I'm breaking to give you a chance to come in, Mr. Joseph.
Well, you see, I'm listening. I'm an attentive listener, Doc. So
Oh, yeah, active listener.
I will just listen to you. And to me, it's a revelation, the language that you're speaking and the way you're unraveling it for us. Cecil, I know you're taken aback, but you always like English. You like English. You're lost for words?
I just want to find out from Dr. Ansem, what's the importance of the Creole in this case?
The Creole is very important because the children come to us, or the teachers, with this as their first language. Be it the Creole, the French Creole. If you're in a place like Granby, they will come with the French Creole, that what you call patois. That's their first language. Now, if the child is speaking to you, you can't turn down the child and say, "Child, speak English." But that is his first language. Let me just read to you from our Key Stage 1 kindergarten language arts curriculum that I assisted in putting together. There's something on the introduction where we're speaking about the Creoles. And good night to Mrs. Shemaine Badwell. She's the one who is in charge of that department, but I assisted her in doing this. And it is one of the performance standards says, use home language to communicate ideas. And it is also called home language. The Creole languages, they're also called home languages. So right in the curriculum, teachers are asked to ensure that the students use their home language to communicate ideas. No longer are we telling them what you are speaking is broken English. What you are speaking is bad English. There's nothing broken about us. We are Creole people. We are strong people. Nothing broken about us. Okay? And here's some of the suggested activities. Encourage the use of home language when speaking. Allow pupils to express themselves freely in a non-threatening manner. Show appreciation for pupils' home language and encourage other pupils to do the same. Make reference.
Sorry, miss. Before I lose my thought. You know that is a revolution that we are speaking about right now. When you tell people to start using the home language to help express themselves, rather than using the second language as you said.
But the funny thing is that we do it. It's just that we are not aware that we are doing it. It's like walking. Nobody has to tell you put one foot in front of the other. You do it. Make reference to pupils' home language when possible. Create an awareness in pupils that there is another language used to communicate at school, which is the international accepted English, what we call the standard. So we are not throwing the standard out of the window. We are not saying that we are not going to be using the standard, because when they come to do their CXC and their grade 6 assessment test, their grade 2 and the other assessment test that they do, they have to use the standard. But what we are saying is something in linguistics we call code switching. You have to be able to code switch, and that is what depicts whether someone is intelligent or not. You go to the market and you see all the pretty dash in there and the plantain. You want a good wajma. Go there and speak standard English and see the price you'll get. But you come to the market and you say, hey, your dashing looking nice, eh? How much you selling that now? And the lady will say, well, that heap there. Well, those days they're weighing it. Those days they are weighing it. So I don't know if you will get that good time. But before, they would say, she would say, well, one heap, $5 a heap. Well, put that little one on it for me now. And if you say put that little one on it for me now. You know you're getting the little one. But if you go there, good morning, ma'am, how are you? I would like to buy a heap of dasheen. How do you sell your dasheen? Right away, the lady said, that one is from America. The dasheen is not $5 again. The dasheen is not $5 because that kind of dialects or that kind of idiolects that you are bringing there, that is not for $5. So she will treat you as a foreigner. You understand? So here they are saying, where possible, translate vocabulary words into home language. So let us suppose the teacher is using a word and she's saying, when you all are when you all are coming to school, you have to ensure that your hair is combed properly, especially the girls. And please remain there so your mother can, untangle your hair. No, the child doesn't know what untangle is. She's watching the teacher, funny. The teacher said, well, tell your mother to demele your hair for you. Right away, the child catches it because she knows demele is untangled. So this is how we could switch. We switch from one language, be it from the French Creole to the English Creole to the standard. And you hear people saying, why when I was small, I used to pass in that shascot, dear. But I always tell people, the word shascot came from shortcut. It was a shortcut. But we have had a lot of Antiguans and people from Montserrat coming to Dominica at one point in time. So they could not say shortcut. So they started saying shortcut. And then we Dominicans, we fix it to shascot. So when you hear people talking about shascot, originally it was shortcut. I'm going to pass through the shortcut. So right in our draft language arts curriculum kindergarten, it is there. Use, and listen to this one, use pupils' home language to teach the standard English. So Mr. Adams, you will write on cue, use pupils' home language to teach the standard English, because standard English is not something that's easy to pick up. Because remember, I said our L1 is DEC, Dominica English Creole, or it might be the French Creole. And we have all these peculiarities. You have the double negatives, you have no copula, you have the reduplication where we say the words over and over. And then that child has to come and learn. We went to the beach on Sunday. But the child knows when I'm at home, I'm not saying that. I say, we go, or we did go to the beach. We did go. And the teacher is saying, we went. So that's a struggle. That's a struggle that is there. Now don't talk about the this and that. That TH is just not coming through. This, and no matter how educated you are, no matter how educated you are, you're a Dominican, you will say the D, you will say the this, you will say the that. When you are in a formal setting, you will catch yourself and you will say, okay, this is a formal setting, so this and that and those. But we are Creole people. You have another question?
I just want to find out from you, how does that affect our literature?
Well, I would say it can go both ways, because I have corrected common entrance compositions already, where this child from Marigot was able to put in her kokoi in composition and score a very high mark, almost like a 37 on 40. And she could do it so well that she knew she had to put it in quotation marks. She knew when to bring in the standard. She knew when to use the kokoi to demonstrate that the person was speaking in their local home language. So it shows a level of intelligence. And as I said, if it is juxtaposed, that is, you teach them side by side, then there is no embarrassment. Because what used to happen before, people used to kind of chide their children. Don't speak that kind of English here. I don't want that. I have heard a lot of people, especially from Marigot Wesley, they said their parents wouldn't want them to speak the kokoi. But that's your culture. This is who you are. And we have to give kudos to the Jamaicans. The Jamaicans are the ones who stood up for their Jamaican Creole, and they said, this is who we are, no matter where we go. And two Jamaicans meet, they're going, we're going back a yard. And if you cannot understand them, that is not their business. So St. Lucia is another powerful one with their French Creole. No matter, from the time they are little, they speak it. You go to the banks and you hear people speaking French Creole or Patois in St. Lucia. I must commend our elders, those on the rural areas. They speak the French Creole. and they speak it well. We might have different versions. Like if you go to Soufriere, there's a different patois there. If you go to Grand Bay, there's a deeper one there. But when you come to Roseau and you tell somebody, Hola Okale, people watch you like, what is she talking about? I used to teach at Roseau Primary, and some of the things I used to do, I was an English educator, but when I would come into the class, I would do a little bit of French Creole, sometimes a little bit of Spanish. And my students still watch me and tell me, hasta luego, señora Ansem. But I would come into the class and I would tell them, Sakino, hola okawesti. And they would say, Miss, what is that? And every day we would do a little. And they got so excited about it. I would tell them, go and tell your grandmother and your grandfather to teach you the rest. Because this is your culture. This is your language. You need to know it. And there's something called linguicide, which is the death of a language. We have to ensure that French Creole does not die. Because English Creole will not die. English Creole will not die. And it is such that even when you come into formal settings, people forget themselves. They forget themselves, and it's straight Creole English that they're speaking. Sometimes you have to remind them, and remember, we need to model the language for the students. If we want them to speak the standard, we have to model the language, because it's such a part of us. So it can be used positively, where you let them see, I see the man, that's okay. We say that when you're on the court, when you're outside running up and down with your friends, I see the man. But if you're going to represent your school at the DBS spelling competition or at the DBS reading competition, you can't go saying, I did see the man. You have to say, I saw the man, because you are using the standard at this moment.
But are we not seeing that the Creole English is challenging the standard English, and it's creating a problem into our society?
Well, what I would say, there are so many Creole Englishes that are coming across, because even when you listen to music, you have a lot of the Jamaican Creole coming across. And sometimes I'm startled when I hear people singing the Jamaican song so well. I wonder if they understand what they're saying, but they love it. You understand? We also have the Trinidadian Creole where they say nature. We say nature. In Dominica, they say nature. And we know in St. Lucia, they don't say the DDD like us. They say the and cricket and market and these things. But because every island has its own Creole. But what I would say, if it is used positively, do not look down on it as being embarrassed. Because at some point in time, you use it. You use it. I use it. When I'm speaking to my husband, I'm cracking a joke. He won't go here and me say, good night, Ansem, how are you? We need to speak up. Only, sometimes we use our language when we want to distance ourselves, right? When we want to, they call it the language of divergence. You can either have the language of convergence, where remember when I was telling you about the market? When you come to the lady who is selling and you want the wajma, so you speak in her language. You're using the language of convergence. You're coming close to her. But if somebody calls you on the road and you don't want to answer them and you're saying, I'm his friend, what are you calling me? Excuse me, who are you speaking to? And the person knows very well that they have to keep their distance. This is the language of divergence. But again, both of them, they have their place. So it's nothing to be embarrassed about.
Even at home, right? A child can know whether or not mommy or daddy is serious. Based again, according to you, based on how they project the English language or the second language. If a mother wants to tell a child about his or her homework, they will not say it in the kindness of ways. They will more or less say it in the standard English. Why didn't you not? No, they wouldn't say why didn't you not. That is the second language. Why haven't you done your homework? And you know that it's serious. Right away, you have to answer.
Because you know why they did not go to the language of familiarity. They went to the formal setting. So you know that is serious business. She didn't say, why didn't you do your homework? Nah. No, you know that it's serious business.
You see, one of the things, Cecil, is that language evokes feeling. And when you use different languages, well, the way you say it will either get you to be close to the person or away from the person. Language is emotional. So you have to know when to use it to get to what you really want. So you see, the child uses the language all the time to affect the behavior in the home. Because the child will speak to the mother one way and speak to the father another way. And they can cause confusion within the household if you're not careful. The way they use the language.
No, also, Dr. Ansem, in reference to the home language, many a times we see that it affects pronunciation. Help us on that.
Oh, yes. Remember I told you in Dominica, we don't sound the TH at home per se. We say whiff and teeth, mouth. So when the child is saying MOUTH and you're telling the child this is mouth, you need to tell the child, this is how we say it in the standard. Instead of telling the child, but it's not mouth, it's mouth. But the child knows when I go home, I'm not hearing mouth. When I'm talking with my little friend on the schoolyard, we are not saying mouth. Why is Miss saying mouth? So you need to let them know these are two languages that you're dealing with. This one is called the standard, Dominica Standard English. And we say mouth, we say mother, we say father, But in the Creole English, what we speak, our home language, we say mouth, we say mother, mother. How do you spell that MOTHER when you are saying mother and father?
You put in A instead of E, that's all. You put in A instead of E, or D-O, or MODAR.
So what
or
happens?
MODA.
What happens? The TH can also be a D. In the Creole, it takes the form of a D. So we say mother, we say father.
What about teaching the children the sound of the alphabet so that they have a better understanding?
Well, it's not really the sound of the alphabet, It is the culture and what the culture brings. Because even if they know their alphabet, and when they are speaking the language, when they are speaking the Creole, they're going to say whiff. They're going to say whiff. The intelligent child will know there is a whiff. The one who uses a lot of the standard, let me correct myself. The one who uses a lot of the standard will know there is a whiff. There's a WITH. The one who uses a lot of the Creole and is not so familiar with the standard, she will write WIF because that's what she's hearing. So you, the teacher, you have to let her know there's a difference. These are two languages. In this particular situation, when we are writing for school, when we are writing for exams, we go ahead and we use the Dominica Standard English. So it's with, WITH, with.
So would you encourage? You said that earlier on that we should not break down the student who is speaking the home language. But if we are seeing that the home language is affecting the standard language, how do we go about this to solve and to help the student to become a better student?
Well, what I used to tell my students, I used to tell them, if there anything wrong, if you were to take your church clothes and come to school with it, and they would laugh. They say, no, miss, church clothes is not for school. We come to school in our uniform. I say, very good. I say, but what if you were to go to church in your bath suit? Then they would laugh even louder. So they say, why? They say, but miss, you cannot go to church in your bath suit. Bath suit is for going on the beach. I say, right. So when you are at home, when you're on the court, when you are with your friends, you speak the Creole. There's nothing wrong with your home language. When you are in a formal setting, and the teachers need to get that. When you're in a formal setting, you use the standard. And you juxtapose the two. You put the two side by side. Let them see it. And if you let them see the peculiarities, you let them see the reduplication. Is that big, 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 big? But in the standard, we say his head is extremely big or it's humongous. Then they will know that these are two different languages that we're dealing with. Two different languages, just as how I have my home clothes, I have my church clothes, I have my beach clothes, and there's nothing wrong with them.
So
You see the man with his, just a minute, you see the man with his pants all stained up and he's going to the garden. Would you say there's anything wrong with him, with his clothes? No, that's his garden clothes. But he won't take the stained up pants and go to church. Just like languages. Languages are meant for different, according to what we're talking about here, it's meant for different situations.
I know when we went to high school, and you would know that coming from River Street, we speak the street language, and when we started going through the doors of high school or high schools, when we went home and we start to speak as we normally would say it, the Queen's language, they tell us that we're excited about education.
You see, language is a form of communication. Let me give you an example. If you're in Jamaica, you'll speak your Creole. Let's say you want to communicate with me. I come from Dominica and we're Dominicans. So we speak our Creole language because we do not want them to understand what we're saying. So I see language as a form of communication. We use the language, our home language, when we're with our friends, which we use our common language, which is a mixture of our standard English and other languages mixed together. But as she's saying, it's a language we use in a school setting or in certain forums where we use the standard English. So that's the struggle. But what she's telling us is that we should not discourage students from communicating in their home language. Because she's saying Creole is our language. Standard English is not our language. That is
but you see, while you're saying that, some people are making mention of the fact that the Creole language is affecting proper communication in terms of pronunciations of words, and we need to know how to divide the both at the appropriate time, and I think that's where we have the struggle.
No, well, the struggle is, as she says, that there are different outfits that we use for different occasions.
But many of us don't.
The farmer cannot go to his garden with his church clothes. People think he's not wearing his head.
But some farmers but some farmers would go to his garden with his church clothes because he intend to put that church clothes away to make it his garden clothes.
Well, no, but if he goes with his church clothes to the garden, he would have to change it at some point in time because
I know.
So in other words, you have to learn how to interact with the language. You have to know when to use the language. If your everyday friends, you use the standard, that you Creole language, and when you're in school, you know your teacher tells you that. You know the language that you must use to write your common entrance. You know the language that you must use. But in other words, she's saying that in the old days, do you know, students got flogged for speaking patois?
Yes.
That's what I heard.
Do you know?
And that was sad. That was sad. Very sad.
Do you know, when I was reading Get Crashing into the Unknown, and H.L. Christian was saying that his father whipped him for speaking Creole.
Which one, the Cocoy?
Yes, the Cocoy. He was in La Plaine, where the people communicating in patois.
Okay, it's French Creole.
French Creole, but his father didn't want him to speak that language at home.
His father came from Antigua.
But standard English. And there was people were being whipped. We were told not to speak the Creole language at school. So in other words, she's saying that if we continue that, we'll lose our language.
Or they would use the Creole language as a means to defect the children away from the understanding what they are speaking about.
I'm saying, and Doctor can correct me, about almost 60 to 70% of the students, young students, in the Roseau area cannot speak Creole.
Maybe even more.
Which Creole?
French Creole. More.
French Creole.
Maybe more.
Yeah.
they do not understand it. So that's a language that's dying. And
Yes, it's
people-
dying because it wasn't passed on.
it was never
It
passed
wasn't
on.
passed on. So you find that a lot of people, especially in the rural areas, they cannot do it. But Mr. Joseph, what you were alluding to is called a code. So our parents, well, I wouldn't say our parents, but like my generation, that's what we did. We used it as a code. So when we did not want our children to know what we were talking about, we spoke in French Creole so they couldn't understand. And that was bad as well. Because right now we want them to learn it, and some of them said it's too late. That is too late because they said the time we were supposed to teach them, we did not teach them. But I just want you to know, when I was growing up, I loved the English language so much. So much. I can remember going into a little shop in Lago. There was this man, I think he was an Englishman. I cannot exactly remember his name. And when I went in there, I told him, "Good day, sir. I would like a pound of sugar." Now, all my little friends and colleagues would not say that. Whenever they would come, they'd ask the man for a pound. I want a pound of sugar. But I was so enamored with the English language. I said, "I want a pound of sugar." He looked at me and he said, "Little girl, where are you from?" I said, "River Street, sir, just up the road." He said, "You'll go places." That's what he told me. I never forgot that. Because I had a grip on the standard at a very young age. I loved English. When I left Convent High School, when I graduated from Convent High School, I walked away with the English prize. You know? And even when I went to UWI, where we did languages, this is where I understood in linguistics that the Creole languages are part of us. They are part of us. We can't run from them, as Paulkins would say. And it is so, the language is just so strong as compared to the English. In the Creole, especially in the Antiguan Creole, they say bottom foot. What wrong with you, bottom foot? Right away, you know they're talking about something under your foot. But in the standard, they say, what's wrong with the sole of your foot? Now, for the life of you, if you don't know what sole is, you're looking all over your body because you do not know. In the Creole English, we say, what happened? Something go up in your nose hole. You know, well, it's a hole connected somewhere to your nose. In the standard, they say, what's wrong with your nostrils? And you are wondering, what is that? So the English is so opaque as compared to the Creole. As compared to the Creole tells you the thing just as it is. And even right within our Creoles, we have some African words that came across. I don't know if you have heard of this one. And in Antigua, they say nyam. Me go nyam me food.
That's to eat.
To eat. And that's a very old African word. Nyam. There's another one called juk. In Dominican Creole, we say something chook me in my foot. In Antigua, they say something juke me. Even in Jamaica, they say juke. But this is an African word as well. So even within the Creoles, we have words that came down. And then we also have the duplication or the reduplication in our body parts. Because we talk about bem and boom boom and the others, we talk about them. We say twice. So you can see something was amiss coming down the road there. And it just stayed with us. That's how Creole we are.
Can you imagine you tell a child penis and he might be wondering what you're talking about at a very small age?
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're lost.
Yeah. They're lost.
They had their own common language which they learned from home.
Duplication, reduplication. So the Creole is beautiful. It is beautiful. And it's only when you come to accept it and you are able to see this is who we are, where we come from. A Dominican will go anywhere. And from the time you start saying, where she go now? I live in Mamzelwi. Somebody say, that's a Dominican right there. The we and the na will tell you that's a Dominican right there.
That's our Creole. I just want to tell people that they can call now, the numbers that you can call, 305-432-9744. If you're overseas, to interact with Dr. Cyrilla Ansem, you can call 448-3284 if you're in Dominica on your mobile phone. You can call 1-800-327 if you have a landline, and you can call 448-3281. These numbers that you can call, you can actually converse with Dr. Ansem. Now, Dr. Ansem, I have a problem with we adopting other languages. And for instance, you might say it's standard, you might say it's accepted. I never like to hear the word kids for children or the replacement of kids for children. What is your views on that?
Well, as we say, language evolves, and there are so many new words that come in. Right now, we have bling bling, we have swag, and then we have crib. And I knew crib to be a place where you put babies. But when people say, you want me to show you my crib, they're talking about my place. And you say, let's go for a lime. Let's go for a lime. And you long ago, a lime was a fruit. You understand? So that is the evolution of languages. Now, when you say kid, some people say they do not like the word kid because it refers to goods. It refers to goods. I prefer to call them children, but sometimes the word kid will still jump out of your mouth. Yeah, but I prefer to call them children. Mm-hmm.
And even sometimes when you listen to the North Americans, for instance, the word analog, ANALOGUE, the Americans drop the UE and allow the spelling to be ANALOG. Help us on that one. How do we go about it in terms of having to write this on paper?
Well, you have two different types of spelling. You have the British and the American. So if you are spelling British English, and there are Englishes there, by the way, there are Englishes. You have American English, you have Canadian English, you have all sorts of English. We call them Englishes. So that is why you will have the analog and spelled differently. You'll have center. The British will tell you CENTRE, center. The Americans will tell you CENTER, center. So they will have their own spelling. They not only have their own spelling, they have their own words. So one will tell you lift, the other one might say an elevator. One will tell you a tap, the other one might say a faucet. So even within the English, you have different styles based on the area that you come from.
I hope your friend.
Someone is on the telephone. Let's go to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller. You're live.
Good evening. Good evening, Cecil. Good evening, Brain. Good evening, Dr. Ansel.
Good evening to you, Dr. Steinberg Henry.
Doctor, thank you. I have always been fascinated by the word ka. Mweka dasi, mweka uli, mweka gumwe, mweka maji, mweka machi. What is that word ka? Do you have any explanation for it? This is a fascinating discussion. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ka is a marker. Ka is a tense marker. And it is what we would say it's a present continuous. I am eating. I am dancing. So ka is a tense marker. Okay? Mwe ka dase. Mwe te ka dase. Here we go. I was dancing. Mwe te vle dase. I wanted to dance. We have changed the tense again. So that is why we do not call them dialects. They are no longer called dialects. They are called languages because they have their syntax, their very own structure. They have their semantics, they have their phonology, they have their morphology. So we no longer call them dialects. When you can sit down and you can dissect that into the different tenses, mo kadase. Mwete kadase. Mwen te vle dase. It's just like English. I danced. I was dancing. I wanted to dance. Just in another language.
In that revolution that we are now speaking in terms of the English language, because 20 years ago or 25 years ago, speaking the way that you're now speaking would not have been accepted. People would tell you that there is the Queen's language and you have to be able to speak the Queen's language. And so we are seeing this being affected, or we have seen that quite a number of institutions have been affected, from the media to the banks to the government ministries, just name it, that we have seen the home language surpassing that of the standard language. And you said that's not a problem. But tell me, how should we as a nation, as a people, to be able to live with a good conscience and to state that
first of all, sorry about it.
Yeah, go ahead.
You finish up.
Just before you all go, there's someone online. I don't want. Let's take a call.
It's getting hot. Language is getting hot.
Good evening to you, caller. Your live.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay. To all three of you in the studio, I would like the doctor to tell me, because I'm tired of hearing the announcers, especially on DBS, pronouncing the word MANDATOR. I heard them saying it's mandatory, but when I grew up, I knew it as mandatory. So if that's the correct word, doctor, please tell me, or else I would ask Mr. Joseph to bring in somebody in there to educate the announcers and the persons on the news desk and the announcers giving announcing whatever is happening. Don't pronounce the word mandatory. I would not like to hear that. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
So you see the problem. So you see the problem, doctor, where we are speaking about the American English, the Canadian English, and the British English, and that is someone I'm almost sure is familiar with the British English. So answer her question.
Yeah, it's supposed to be mandatory because we don't go around saying chocolate. I want a piece of chocolate, unless you're French. Chocolat. You understand? We say chocolate. And that is why when it's time to spell the word, sometimes the pupils have a problem because they're hearing chocolate, yet it is chocolate. We don't say, although some people may say it is interesting, but it's not interesting, it's interesting. So when you write it, there are certain words that you see, but when you say it, the group of letters get constricted. So it's not interesting. It's interesting. Just like mandatory. You understand? But if you are not familiar with that, you may just as well say mandatory and think you are correct.
I know, most of us would know why, and that's why I asked you earlier on, in reference to the word kids versus that of kids, and children, and that of analog versus that of analog. You know, there are two different pronunciations.
Kids and children would be more or less what would say probably semantics. But, what she was asking is more or less phonology.
Right.
But I want to commend the University of the West Indies for raising an awareness Creoles in the Caribbean. I want to commend them because we had some earlier Creolists like Douglas Taylor. I don't know if you have ever heard of this man called Douglas Taylor.
Yes, he wrote a
But
history.
he came to Dominica very early, and he even lived among the Caribs or the Kalinago people, studying their language. He studied our French Creole long before we accepted it as a language, when people were beaten for it. He accepted our French Creole.
Sorry about that. Someone's on the line again. Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller. Good evening to you, caller. You're live.
Have a good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Turn down your volume.
Turn down your volume on your...
ready. Because you're listening. You're getting feedback.
Yeah. Go ahead, caller.
Can you hear me? I'm sorry. I'm calling from overseas.
Yeah, go ahead. You're live.
Hi, Dr. Lady Anson. This is Sister Myrna. I am enjoying your show. I put several comments in the chat, but I have a question. I am a born Dominican, but I left when I was 20 years old. And even with my kids, like certain words, like a drink that they like, I say Capri Sun, and they always correct me. Mom, it's not Capri Sun, it's Capri Sun. So I try to explain to people with my accent that do we stress the first syllable or do we stress the second syllable? I'm not sure.
Well, I am happy that you called in, and that's my ex-student, by the way. I've taught so many of them over the years. I'm happy to hear you on the program. Well, we have something in linguistics we call idiolect. In Roseau, we say a boy. In Granby, we say a boy. In Portsmouth, we say a boy. But it's the same letter. It's just that in different localities, the word is pronounced differently. So you have your Dominican pronunciation and you're saying Capricon, and they say Capricon. It's the same thing. It's just that they're pronouncing it like Americans. You still have your Dominican pronunciation with you. You understand? So if I go to Granby and I hear a boy, I shouldn't get frightened. When I'm in Roseau, they say a boy. And if I go to Portsmouth, they will say a boy.
But let me ask you, let me ask you, Doc. Is the word, is the letter A hard sound or a soft sound in that case to determine whether or not we should say a boy or a boy or a boy?
I do not think it has anything to do with hard sounds and soft sound. Hard sound and soft sound, more or less, you would look at the letter G. In letter G, we have G, like government, that's a hard G. And then you have J, like general, that's a soft G. Then you might have a hard C, like pick, and you might have a soft C, like cent. She only had 5 cents. But with the I, it has to do with pronunciation, not anything to do with hard or soft.
Okay, all right. No, someone just sent me a message and said there's no word called Englishes. Can you help the person?
Well, what they need to do, they need to go online, Google it. Google it. There are Englishes. You have Canadian English, you have American English, we even have our Dominican Standard English. There are lots and lots of Englishes, because the way you would say something in Canada, you come to America and you say it, and people are like, what is she talking about? You come to Trinidad, you say something, what is she talking about? So there are Englishes.
Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller. You're live.
Yes, Cecil. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Always interesting. Yes, I would like to ask the doctor concerning, she mentioned the word mandatory earlier on. Right, but when we divide words into syllables, the word mandatory, is pronounced like that in American English, and we say mandatory. But if you have to separate the word in syllables, it's really mandatory, isn't it?
Remember what I said. You have different facets to the word. Look at chocolate. Right. It's chocolate. But do we go around saying out like a piece of chocolate? No, we say out like a piece of chocolate. That is why when they're doing the common entrance, it's an easy way to catch the children. They would put CHOCLIT, and some of the children say, yes, that's chocolate.
So would you not say the second O is silent and get the pronunciation CHOC and the O is silent and we say chocolate?
You could see it like that. You could see it like that. You could see it like that too. And we need to know that English is a language with a lot of loans. You know, when you go by NBD and you want a loan, English has a lot of loans within the English language, which is the last language to come into effect in the 16th century. You have Spanish words. When you say mosquito, you're speaking Spanish. When you say kindergarten, you're speaking German. When you say restaurant, you are speaking French. And that is why when people say, I'm going to the saloon to do my hair. Please, please, please. You go to the saloon to drink rum. You go to the salon to do your hair,
Well, I
because
have a
salon
question.
is a
I,
French
I
word.
like that. I like that. I like that. Help us again with this SALOON. The
Mm-hmm.
S,
Hello.
A
the S.
salon.
1 second, caller. 1 second, please. The
Oh, okay.
SALOON is the wrong place. What you're saying?
It's a wrong place. It's a saloon. And if you're an avid watcher of westerns, like my husband, you would know that when you go to the saloon, you're going to the place to drink rum. But when you go to the salon, you're going to fix your hair. And sometimes people say, I'm going to the saloon. And I say, no. And it's like cartoon. You say, I'm going to buy a cartoon of milk. You're not buying a cartoon of milk, you're buying a
So,
carton.
caller, just hold on a while, caller.
Because
Just hold
cartoon.
on. Just hold on, caller. I just want to interact a little bit with the doctor. So, the double O in cartoon is the
Yeah,
movie.
you watch
Is
cartoon.
the
You watch
movie.
cartoon on
And
TV.
and the one
That's what you
O
watch on TV.
and the one O
But the one O is
is
carton
right
because
carton.
it's
It's
French. It's
TON
French. It's a
ton.
cartoon.
Right
It's a
carton.
box.
And and
It's a
and,
box.
and you were using one a while ago
Mm-hmm.
salon and saloon
Salon.
and saloon.
Yes.
So the
Mm-hmm.
LON is where you're going to do your hair.
Yes.
So
Salon.
we should not be saying saloon anymore
Yep.
to go to
Unless you're going to drink.
unless you're going to drink.
Unless you're going to get a drink. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So English, as I was saying,
Hold on, caller.
English is a conglomeration.
Hold on. The caller is still on the line.
I think you better take the call, and
Yeah,
then
the
we can
caller is on the
always
line.
get
Yeah,
back
go ahead, caller.
into
Go ahead, caller.
the conversation.
Go ahead, caller.
Yes, so we have to accept the languages as they come, because there was at one point back home we used to say people, but over the years I've been listening to the radio and I'm hearing persons. Hello?
Yes.
Well, that is one I haven't reconciled with. I don't know where it came from. But it has surely taken over.
And I'll tell
And
you
everywhere you go, you hear persons.
and I'll tell you one that's going to take over soon. Good, better, best, besties.
Oh, well,
I
this
heard
is
you
Creole.
This
This
is
is
Creole.
Creole.
Besties
This
is
is
Creole.
Creole.
Besties
Yeah,
is
this
Creole.
is Creole. My bestest friend. This is Creole. And even in America, they have their Creole Englishes, They have their Creole Englishes that they speak. Even they have French Creole in places like Louisiana, where they speak French Creole, and they have their English Creole as well. So you might hear them saying certain things, and I think they call it Black English or whatever they call it, but they have their Creole as well, So
So in
Besties would
other
not
words,
be, I don't think Besties would take over. Yeah. hmm But
so in other
kind
words,
of coming
we
back
can,
to the center.
Just hold on.
Is she?
She's still there. Yeah.
Still there.
Okay.
yeah. So I just wanted to say, well, we should accept. We can say, well, this one is not the right one, or this one is the wrong one. So I think we should accept, the languages the way they are spoken in different places. Not to say that we have the best English and they don't have the best English.
No, you can't say that. You can't say that. You can't say that
Yeah,
because every locality is different. Every locality is different. Because I was a bit taken back when I went to places like Grande, and they said, you have a nylon? But I know nylon would be stockings. Only to find out that they're talking about a plastic bag.
Yes, I am from Granby.
Yeah, they're talking about a plastic bag. And then if you go to places like Marigot, they talk about vehicles. We want some vehicles. So I'm like, vehicles are modes of transportation. And only to find out they were talking about victuals, which would be food.
Yes.
So you have to put context. You have to put context to whatever is being said in order for you to understand the language that's being spoken.
Thank you, caller.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you for interacting with us. Yes, doctor. You're saying.
So bringing it back to the center, I was saying it was the University of the West Indies that raised an awareness in the Caribbean, these English Creoles, French Creoles, Spanish Creoles, whatever Creoles they are, and erase that thing, that stigma that was attached to it, because people did not want their children to speak Creole. Creole was the language of the illiterate. You were not supposed to speak it. And you're talking about French Creole. I have heard people like Antiguans say their parents did not want them to speak the Antiguan Creole. They would beat them as well because they wanted them to speak only the standard. So there was this stigma attached to the Creole. And it's so funny. It comes out of our tongue. It just rolls off our tongue so easily. Yet we want to, as Paul Kins would say, we want to separate ourselves from it. You know, and talking about Paul Kins, we have those that went before, like Louise Bennett. I don't know if you're aware of this lady. She was a very famous Creole lady. She would speak in her Jamaican Creole. And she's one of the forerunners that got us to really accept it and love it as well. Mm-hmm.
Yes, doctor. You're talking about the the origins of the English language, and you're talking about Frederick Taylor. I think Frederick Douglass or Taylor.
Douglas Taylor.
Right, Douglas Taylor, who came here in Dominica as this anthropologist, I think he was.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he was. And a linguist as well.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting discussion. But language itself, from your discussion, is always evolving. Let's say, for instance, I was telling Cecil the other day, let's say ripe banana, they would say aital. What about the Rastafarian language?
Yes, they have their own jargon. They have and lots of different disciplines. They have their own jargon. A mechanic would have his own jargon. A lawyer would have his own jargon. Spiritual people have their own jargon. You notice I like to say shalom. And wherever people are gathered, you have a community of practice. These people, they have their own jargon. And so the Rastafarians have their own jargon. They say Irie, they say Aital. You need to know what they're talking about. You know, how are you, Irie? They don't have to say, I am feeling well. Well, they tell you, Irie. And that encapsulates everything.
No. I also have a problem, Doctor, that we deal with the English language when we speak properly in reference to the syllables that we meet on the way in terms of pronunciations. So we have taken on board some other Creole English, and I like to use the word America, and we hear them say M-A-C-H-I-N-E. or I will use the word, I'll say the word. We hear them say in America, machine. But we were taught that the word is machine. And some people talking about evolution of words. But we are dealing with the syntax and we are dealing with the issues of...
How do we say the word M-A-C-H-I-N-E, Doctor?
Of course it's machine. And the other one is balloon.
Balloon, yes. It's another
one. We say balloon.
We say balloon.
And I've heard people say police. And I'm wondering where they're going with this. Because it's police.
P-O-L.
But sometimes people say police.
No P-U.
And even our French Creole words. I remember when somebody said fondically. And I'm like, what is this?
What is it? What is it?
This is a French Creole word. It is for pole.
What the person said?
A deep hole. For pole.
No, what the person said? No, what did the person
say?
What did the person say?
So they said fondically.
There was no U. Mm-hmm. There's no U.
But that's a deep
What
hole.
did they anglicize it? So they said F-O-N-D font and collate, but it's not. It's not. So we have to look carefully. It's machine, balloon. And some children they say no, me, it's not balloon. Why are you saying balloon? I say yes, it's balloon.
Well, Doctor, I'm going to win. You just made me win a bet because one of my colleagues came and wanted to bet with me $100 when I said the word machine. He said, no, it's machine. You know, so I'm very glad. You know, I'm very glad that the listening audience, and I hope that he's listening, when he heard you pronounce the word when I had said machine. So you see? Thank you, Doctor.
You're welcome.
And somebody asked me to again request of you to deal with the word people and persons. The person said they want a better clarification on it.
Well, it's supposed to be people. One person, two people. But what happens with the evolution of language, sometimes words come into the language. And when they come in, they can take over. They can take over. Remember when banana used to be a fruit? But if you say she has gone bananas, it's no longer fruit. That's a different connotation you're
She's
bringing
gone
to
crazy.
it. So sometimes words come in, and when they come in, they take over. They take over. Yeah.
Isn't those adjective been given because you want to give expression? But when you come to the standard, you deal with the issues of the standards.
Well, it could be, but I think as time goes
Because
by, people speak differently. People speak differently as time goes by because people will tell you, boy, she's looking lit. She's looking lit. And you know the young people have their own
flick,
vocabulary, right?
and you're very flick.
They have their own
Yes,
vocabulary.
they do.
And sometimes they can talk around you and you have no idea what they are talking about.
Just
Although they are speaking in English.
Hold your thought. Someone's on the line. Good evening to you, caller.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, let me ask you a question. What about when you pronounce your INs as INGs? Like sometimes 19 instead of saying 19, robbing instead of saying robbing. What about that?
Thank you.
Again, it has to do with where you grew up because I have heard people say singing, singing, and we say singing. So some people, depending on whichever part of maybe Britain or America, wherever they are, they say singing.
No.
We don't pronounce it like that.
No. We're looking as to what is correct. It's not what your locality is saying. What is correct if you go in any society that will accept. So it's not about a society say singing, another one saying singing. No. And that is why they give us songs of letters, and then we are able to create that word that is expected of us, and that's why we have a lot of connotations and we have a lot of,
Well, what I need to tell you is welcome to the 21st century, where we speak differently and we speak according to the style that we want to speak in.
No, but that should be
So
accepted.
it's no longer back then when the teacher would drill into your head that you say it like this, because you go to another locality, you go to another country, and this is how it is said, and you have to accept it like that. Remember the lady who came on earlier, and she told us that she's saying Capri Sun, and her children, because they're Americans, they pronounce it differently.
But
that's how it is.
I am saying to you.
That's how it is.
I'm saying to you, AXIVER is Xavier. It cannot be Xavier.
Hey, some people say Xavier. So what about the person who is saying Xavier? What are you going to tell them?
The person is wrong.
No, they're not.
Why they're not wrong?
The person is giving it a French pronunciation, which is Xavier. You are giving it an English pronunciation. And by the way, it was originally French.
Xavier.
It was originally French.
It's a French surname. Yeah.
It has been anglicized. When you look at the word table, do you know that the word table was originally French? Table. And then the English borrowed the word. That's why I told you in English we have a lot of loans. So the English borrowed the word and they changed it to table. But originally it was table.
Well, if that's the case, soon from now, anything that a child writes on his paper will be accepted as correct standard English.
No.
No.
No, Cecil. The doctor didn't tell us that.
No.
As long as he knows how to represent it.
I am saying.
So if he's writing a story and he says, I see the man under the window, open inverted commas, close inverted commas, shouted John as he galloped down the road. You who know you would understand that this person has just incorporated Creole English into his story.
Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller. You're live.
Hello, hi.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm an American-born Dominican, and I just feel like it's unfair to say that certain words are pronounced right or wrong, just because the amount of English-speaking countries in the world, there's not one right or wrong way to say it, and I don't think it matters whether whether English borrowed a word from another language, for the simple fact that we're not speaking that other language. We're speaking English. So I don't think there's any right or wrong way to say specific words, just because everywhere has different accents, everywhere has different ways of saying things, everywhere has different pronunciations. Even in the United States, there are multiple different ways. There are multiple different accents, and there's multiple different ways of saying things. So words like machine and machine, I don't think it's fair to say one is right and one is wrong, just because everywhere says things differently, including balloon, balloon, and mandatory. All those words, I don't think it's fair to say one is right.
So caller, let me just say to you then, do you believe in pronunciations? Caller?
What do you mean?
I'm asking, do you believe,
yes, I'm here.
Right, do you believe that B has a sound?
I believe all letters have sounds. All
Right.
letters have some sound.
Right.
But there's certain rules to the English language that, like, depending on where the letters are in the word, depending on what letters are next to words, are next to different letters, they all make different sounds. So I'm not understanding the question.
Well, I will have to ask the doctor. Doctor.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes, doctor. What do you have to say about that?
Well, again, as I was saying, people speak differently depending on where they are. But MA cannot be mer. MA is ma. BA cannot be ber. BA is ba.
That's the point.
But it's just that people decide they want to pronounce it in this particular way. If you're coming from a certain state in America, you might even pronounce it even in a different way, because that is how it is pronounced there.
So are you saying to me that soon from now someone can decide that they would like to say Dominica? It's okay to say Dominica?
No, they're phonics, you know.
That's the point I'm making. That's what I was trying to tell the young person in America, that they are phonics.
Yeah, they can say it if they want, but we will tell them we are not Dominica. We are Dominica.
Someone's on the line. Good evening to you, caller. Oh, sorry about that. Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller. You're live.
Good evening, Cecil.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Doctor.
Good evening.
And good evening, Hartley.
You come out. You come. No, look at the doctor there now.
Yes, doctor, you said something that is very interesting, and I am in no way seeking to question your credentials or anything like that. But you said something that BA cannot be ba, and
not ba, ber,
and MA cannot be mer. You said
yes.
that, right?
Yes.
Can you pronounce this word for me? B-A-L-I. Sorry, B-A.
Take your time.
B-A-I-L. Please pronounce this word for me. B-A-I-L.
Well, you have an A and an I. Okay,
Madam, I didn't
and when you were at school in the smaller classes, they would tell you, okay, when two vowels go a walking, the first one does the talking, and the A has a long song here.
Okay.
So it's giving you bail. The I has no sound, as a matter of fact.
Very good. Let's go on. Please pronounce this word then. B-A-D-E.
B-A-D-E. Same thing. It's just that the vowel is on the outside, but it's the same thing.
Oh.
We call it the magic E.
Okay. So why is it machine and not machine?
I thought you were going to give me a harder one, like
No, this is not about
Ball.
being.
But
This
how
is
do you
not.
pronounce
This is,
Ball?
madam. This is not giving you about a harder thing. This is about a simple
Listen to
phonetic
me.
thing.
Listen to me. You need to play along.
No,
You need to
no,
play
I'm not
along. How do
playing.
you
We're not
pronounce
playing.
Ball?
Madam, we're not playing. We are talking about
Listen
one
to this.
distinct
Listen to this.
word.
I'm asking you
We're
the
talking
question now.
about
How do you
one
pronounce
distinct
Ball?
word. Machine.
Hmm?
And this nonsense that educators are putting on radio that people are pronouncing the word machine is absolutely
No,
wrong.
I am correct
It
because
is absolutely wrong.
I am
and
correct,
I proved
comrade.
this
Well,
to
You
it is
you.
still
take your
it is still
lesson
your
in
I
it is
proved this
still
phonics.
to
your
you
opinion.
on
It is
many
still
Your
your
lesson
opinion,
in
Mr.
phonics.
This is
Adams.
not
How do you
opinion.
pronounce
This is not opinion.
Ball?
All.
Ball. So the A even has an O sound.
Oh, but you said BA can never be anything else but bar. You said it, not me.
No. She didn't say that. No.
What did she say?
Mm-mm.
The lady's words were BA can only be bar. MA
We did not
can
use the
only
word. We
be
did not use the
ma.
word only. We said BA is bar.
BA is never anything but bar.
We
MA
did not
is
use never either. We did
so
not
what
use
did you
never.
say? What did you say?
We said BA is bar. That's
Doctor,
what we
give him
said.
a lesson language.
Huh?
Give
BA
him
And
a
is
not
lesson
bar.
language.
not languages in, he's in phonics now.
He's in phonics. Of course,
Well,
he's in
exactly.
phonics.
Phonics. You
That's
don't.
what he
You
said.
as an
He's in
educator,
phonics.
Hadley, do not even
No,
know
it's
language
no
and
machine.
phonics.
It's machine.
No, but
He's in
Hadley, no
phonics.
matter how many
It's
times you
machine.
say it, machine is
Machine.
wrong. And you have a problem of owning up to you being
Machine.
wrong. And I
Give
am
me my
pointing you
$100
out.
tomorrow. Machine.
Let us not go down that road because I'll embarrass you. I'm telling you.
We will not. No. We
We're
no.
educating.
We're not into this. Caller. We're not into this about embarrassing. We have yes.
Thank you, doctor.
Cecil, it's not tonight. It is tomorrow.
Okay.
Have a good night. Machine.
I suspect you and that caller there. You and that caller there.
She gave us a demonstration of phonics. How you must pronounce. Thank you, doctor.
And I like the fact,
You're
doctor,
welcome. You're
I
welcome.
like the fact, doctor, that even when the word BAIL came up, because I've been trying to explain that to some people, that when you have two vowels, the first vowel is the master.
Yes.
The second one is always silent. And it helps you to pronounce the word bail. Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller. You're live. Good evening to you, caller.
Good evening.
Hello. I was the American caller that got cut off. I don't know what happened to call.
I don't know. Sorry about
Sorry
that
about
if
that.
we did. Sorry about that. Go ahead, caller.
Go ahead, caller.
Is this the conversation regarding pronunciation of different words?
Yes.
The doctor?
Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah, as I was saying before, I don't think it's fair to say that one way is right and one way is wrong when, depending on where you live, it's taught differently. That was the point I was trying to get to.
So you're saying basically wherever you live, based on how you pronounce, it becomes tradition from where you live rather than looking at the universal word. Is that what you're saying?
Can you repeat that?
I was saying to you, it's about the area where you live versus that of the universal word.
No, I'm saying that it's unfair to say that something is right and wrong when people come from multiple different places, so they pronounce things differently. So, for example, someone that's from America or someone that's from Canada is not going to say words the same way as someone from Dominica. That's ridiculous to think. And I've only ever heard people pronounce words the way that you guys are pronouncing them in Dominica. I have never heard anybody pronounce them anywhere else. So I don't see how that can be universal when I've only ever heard those words pronounced that way in Dominica and from Dominicans, not from anybody born in America or Canada or England.
And that's why the doctor said to you earlier on, caller, that every territory has its language, its English language, but we must not forget the standard. She was very clear on that.
Okay.
So you may hear.
The phone dropped before she could say that, so I didn't hear it. And two, if that's the case, then what is this conversation about? Because if every territory has different ways of saying it, then what are we arguing about? Because
No, we're not arguing. No, we're not arguing.
Because
No,
she
we're not
spoke
arguing.
about Englishes.
We're not arguing.
So she qualified that by using that.
So that's why That is why earlier on we're talking about the word machine versus that of machine. Okay? Your territory may say machine, but the English language in spelling has says to us M-A and not M-E. So M-A is ma.
That's why we say ma.
Right. So you may say in your territory M-E for M-A, and say, instead of saying machine, you say machine. But we are saying universally that the correct pronunciation is machine. But in your territory, you would say machine. So you may hear a Dominican say, can you please start the machine? And you might think that's a wrong pronunciation. But that individual might be very much correct. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You have,
so have we used all our questions, Mr. Joseph? Because I see we have 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, caller.
Thank you, caller.
Doctor. Yeah. Thank you. Doctor, it's yours again.
So, Doc, you see, that's interesting, especially what the last caller just made mention of, that we should not consider words to be wrong. Basically, that's what I'm getting from her, because you come from a different territory.
What she said there could have a little sense, but we do not want to lose sight of the topic. Mm-hmm. And the topic was the Creoles that are being used in Dominica. How do they impact literacy? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We don't want to lose sight of that. And we saw that the Creole it's a special language. We saw that we have a French Creole. We have 2 English Creoles, and they are spoken in different territories. We see that when the children come to school, they come with their L1. They come with their first language, which is their Creole language. And sometimes they may not be understood properly, especially if a Haitian comes to your class and you are from Roseau. You might have difficulty understanding what this child is saying because he's bringing his L1 to you. So what we are saying, you juxtapose the two. You use the 2 languages to help build up the standard. You let the students know that the standard has its place. It is used for formality. You're writing exams. You're in a formal setting like church, school. You use the standard. You need to know the standard. But there's nothing wrong with your Creole English. It is your home language. It is your go-to. Whenever you want something, you have an emergency. I heard a child say once, "And 2 pp. And 2 pp." And I had to grab my little notebook. I said, "This is a good one. And 2 pp." And she left out. The standard would have said, "I want to pass my urine." That's what the standard would have said.
Just hold on, caller. Someone else on the line. Good evening to you, caller.
Yes, good evening. Very good conversation going on there tonight. I am enjoying everything, but I wanted the doctor to just touch on, for example, names and where people pronounce names differently. Like, for example, in North America, people may say Registi for Regist and T3 for Tit and Dubois for Dubois and so on, and many other names like John Baptist, where you have Juno Baptist and Juno Charles.
And Languedoc and Languedoc.
Well, before the doctor comes in, for a lot of the surnames, for instance, François or Francis, some of the people who gave their names came from migration. People left Martinique, came to Dominica. People left Guadeloupe, came to Dominica. And a lot of the names are from, Mathurin, Mathuin. So some of the names we translate directly from French into English. Doctor.
That's right. But what about when our parents could not speak the English that well and they called people like Philbot? And the person's name was not Philbot. The person's name was Philbert.
Yes.
But because of their English Creole, they said Philbot. And then they called the girl Hildreth. But her name was Hildreth. So even in the languages, you have people speaking based on whether they are French-based or whether they are English Creole-based, and it's coming across.
There's one I want you to help me with: finance and finance.
Well, again, it's like potato and potato. It's like tomato and tomato.
So it doesn't matter which one you use.
No, it's like tomato and tomato.
Okay, so if you're from the British, you'll say finance,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're American, you'll say finance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, yeah, yes.
Yeah, so we were winding
Caller,
up
you there?
again, and there's somebody on the line.
Caller, you're there still?
I'm still on the line.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, sorry about that.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
God bless his soul. I was into broadcasting, and we had Ferdinand Frampton, who I learned a lot from. And like he always, that was something he would always say. No matter what, your name is your name. It doesn't matter how it's spelled.
Yes.
Like for example, he would give Juan and Juan. So he was always that when you're reading news, is what the person tell you your name, their name is,
yeah.
and not what you think it is.
That's a good point.
Okay. All right. That's a good point.
Thank you, caller.
And you have to watch the context as well, because if you saw Juan and you go to say Juan, the person's name might not be Juan. The person might be a Spanish. The person's name is Juan.
Juan. Yeah. J is H. It's pronounced H.
Yeah,
Juan.
the person's name is Juan.
Juan.
So again, context. You have to look at where it's coming from. So we were saying that our Creoles are with us.
Thank you, caller. Thank you, caller.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Go ahead, doctor.
Yeah, we were saying that our Creoles are with us. Our Creoles form part of us. And there are certain words in the Creole, it doesn't get any sweeter in the standard.
But it looks it looks like as if Doc, you won't live there tonight. You know, look, someone the telephone is going like crazy.
Can you give us 15 more minutes, doctor, of your time?
Okay, that's okay.
Good evening to you, caller.
Okay.
Yes, you were talking about, how names can be sounded differently. Okay, that Xavier, we know in Dominica we say Xavier, but it's also in Spanish it is Javier, and also in
French.
Xavier is the English form here, but you also have Javier and Xavier. So different languages, like she said, wherever you are, this is how you speak, and we shouldn't say this one is better than the other one, We have to come together, and, I also want to say something about phonemes, the songs of letters. Sometimes we give the alphabet two sounds, like B. Some people will say ba, but it's really b.
That's correct.
So, the doctor, I take my hat off to you, and I respect you, and I am learning a lot tonight. So I really want to congratulate each and every one of you here tonight. Cecil, always have a good show. A good program.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Good
Thank
night.
you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Doc, cowboy. See,
Well, if you're American, you might say cow, but in Dominica we say cow. What about pool wash? Where does that come from? I give you one pool wash.
That's French.
Where does that come from?
No, that's Dominican word. That is a Dominican word.
But do you know it came from couda wash? Coup, a blow with stone.
Couda wash.
But it has become embedded into the Creole English that we say, I giving you one cool wash.
Couda wash.
And that is what we call code mixing. So you are mixing the two codes. You are mixing the French Creole with the English Creole. And that goes on a lot. Go and démêler your hair. Go and démêler your hair. But démêler is French Creole. And we are using it right within the English itself. So a lot of that, our Creole English has a lot of French Creole embedded within it.
Another caller. Let's take that caller. Good evening to you, caller. Your life.
Yes, good evening to everyone in studio. I must say this is a very interesting discussion you all are having here this evening.
Thank you.
A few things came to mind while I was listening to the doctor speak. And I am thinking about how much of our ethnicity can be traced through our dialect. Because I believe some years ago in 2008, Dr. William Watty delivered a speech at the Fort Young, and he was saying that he find that there are very close similarities to the way that we speak our patois with biblical Hebrew. And I heard the doctor speak of the way that we repeat words, and he was leaning to the fact that repetition of our words is something that came from the Hebrew language. So I'm now wondering, does our dialect really point back to the fact that we, the descendants of the West African slave trade, are in fact Hebrew Israelites from the tribe of Judah? Good evening.
Wow, that one is deep. This one is deep.
That's a big one. But if I remember myself clearly, I said that the reduplication concept came from Africa, because in Africa they double a lot of their words. You hear about fufu.
Yeah, fufu.
You hear about fufu, and you hear a lot of even when I was saying, even when we have to look at our body parts, a lot of them are doubled. In Jamaica, there's a lot of duplication going on where they say fanky fanky, you licky, you too licky. That means you're too greedy, man. You know, you licky. And in Dominica, we don't even go for 2. Sometimes we go for 5. Boy,
your head
Mister,
big. Someone else again is on the line. Sorry to cut you off, Doc. Good evening to you, caller.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Quickly, I remember way back when, I remember H.L. Christian, Henkel Christian saying that Dominic Creole English and Moikale, and that's the way they wrote, like I go in. So if they maintain the Moika Ali, it was like I go in. And the other thing is, for instance, a couple words, like dotish. Now we say, but you dotish? But dotish is really a word. And there is another one like, Mr. looking like a Saka boy. But there is Saga boy, which is really an English word. So some of the way we pronounce the words, they have the English translations also. I just wanted to plug that in. But good program, very good program.
Thank you. What about Battery? How do you pronounce that, Doc?
Battery.
Huh?
Battery.
Thank you. Let's go
Battery.
Let's go
Now
back to the telephone. We're going back to the telephone.
We're going back.
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening to you, caller.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
I stepped in a store the other day and I said, do you have any Toyota? I said,
They look for a car for you.
And I said, boy, I wonder one day if you could have a program for people to understand those things. It's so fascinating. Anybody you tell about Toyota, they'll understand what you're saying, and Suzuki as well.
Your shoes, man.
But they have to be a certain age for them to understand it. You have to be a certain age to get it. You have to be a certain age. Now, the young lady who spoke,
thank you, caller.
I don't know if it's this one.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's this one or the one before. When she talked about dotish, and she said dotish is English. To my amazement, I thought sot was French, only to find out sot is in the Bible. Sot, and it means stupid.
Wow.
And even the word peace is in the Bible. Those that piss against a wall. So you would think that peace is a slang word, but it is an English word.
Let's go back
English word.
Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I wanted to point out a couple of things to consider. That number one, the original way of speaking or pronouncing English, or just the original accent that the British had prior to colonizing the Americas is more similar to how Americans speak now than how the British speak now. That's the fact. When they came to America and colonized America, they wanted to differentiate their accent from the American accent or the transatlantic accent. So that's when they changed their accent to what is now known as the British accent. So knowing this, that the way that the original English-British accent is more similar to American accent than it is to the British accent currently, does that change anything regarding this conversation?
Thank you for the question. Nice question, caller. Yes. Does that change anything, doctor?
I don't think so. There's something we call idiolect in linguistics, and it means how you speak in a particular locality. So your idiolect might be different from mine, so it doesn't really matter.
Thank you, Doctor. Very interesting. You're giving us an insight into languages. But what I find so fascinating about English, I find it to be a very difficult language. Don't
It
you?
is, because what happened, it came from German. It came from the Germans. So when we are boasting about English and how beautiful, it's a Germanic language. That's where it came from. So that is why you find a lot of the words the students get difficulty in spelling. You hear cough, but then it's Cough. How in the world did Cough become cough? Hmm? And think of, you have Bough, but it is bough, the bough of a tree. A lot of these words they come from German origin. That is where English came from. And if you do a study or research on English, you will see why some of the words pose a difficulty for our children. Because, as I said, English is a kaleidoscope of so many other languages. So many.
Someone wants to find out, how do you pronounce Initiative?
Initiative.
Mm-hmm.
Initiative.
Okay, so I'm happy that that person is in Grenada and is listening. I wanted to know the pronunciation. So it's initiative, as we say it in Dominica. Good evening to you, caller. You're live. Good evening.
Yes, yes, you're listening. So since we were colonized and we were taken to the various parts of the earth, we were given that language. So what are we as a race of people, since we are having this conversation and it seems like there's a lot of tension because of the language, the English, the American, I mean, are we going to seize the power to define? Just like we are evolving with our patois, our Creole. What are we going to do? I know it's the standard language throughout the world, but, here we are. It's like it's a battle we are fighting tonight.
I would not say it's a battle, caller. It's just like an awakening. We are coming to see that whatever it is that was just our skin, we are kind of peeling it off and we are allowing ourselves to know that it exists. That is what is happening. Because we have people who come into our midst, people who come from foreign countries, and they come into our schools. Like sometimes when we have our South American teachers, or we may have American teachers who come in and they do voluntary work. They come into our school. We have to allow them, we have to sensitize them to the fact that we don't speak the standard as a first language.
So hold that thought.
We have to let them know that the Creole English is prominent in the mouth of our speakers.
Hold that thought. We have someone on the line. Good evening to you, caller. You're live.
Yes, that's it.
Yes.
I would like to ask the doctor if she have never come across alphabet dictionary or encyclopedia.
Alphabet dictionary.
Where you get that one?
Yeah, well.
Caller, I think that caller made mention of that last week.
Last week, yes.
Yeah. Is there an alphabet dictionary? Doctor,
are you posing the question to me?
Yes, that's what he's asking you.
There are dictionaries, and within the dictionaries you'll find letters and words according to the alphabet.
Yes.
But I have never heard of an alphabet dictionary.
No.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to know.
Thank you. All right. Yeah. Thank you, caller. Yeah. Tonight is amazing, in terms of looking at words and people are just giving good evening to you, caller. People are just calling. Good evening, caller.
Let me tell you, this has been a very fascinating discussion. I will tell you, listening to this discussion, I am left to believe that we, in this 21st century, we are going to be embracing all languages. I don't know what are your thoughts on this. All modes of language, whether the Dominican Creole, the Standard English, the American, the British, I don't think that is the problem. I don't think the problem is which one to use. All along, Dr. Ansem has told us that we have to teach the children when to use them. It is when to use them. If you're in America, use them as Americans do. If you are speaking with your friends, you have a particular kind. If you're writing a paper, you put it in quotation marks. It's more important to teach them when to use it than try to determine which one they should use and should not use. I think it's important to know when to use it, because languages are going within the next 20 years. What are we going to be discussing? What is going to be the language? You see, so language, and we know we have a long history of language and resistance. And I like the fact that Dr. Anselm said, let us not reduce the discussion to machine and machine, or banana and banana, or dashin and dashin. Let us not stay there. We have a history of language. We have a history of resistance through language. They used to call it bastardization. We've done better than that. We are a people who have now reached a stage where we embrace all languages. We embrace mandatory, we embrace mandatory. We embrace statutory, we embrace statutory. We embrace German, we embrace French, we embrace Spanish, we embrace every European language that exists. We embrace Kalinago, we embrace Arawakan. So that is our people in the Caribbean civilization. And that is what I think the doctor has succeeded in sharing with us, that these languages are things we should be open to, all of them, and use them appropriately. I think the key is, how do we teach the children to use them in the correct space and place? That is what matters. But this has been fascinating. Kudos to you guys. Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Steinberg Henry. Yes.
Thank you.
Just imagine 20 years. Imagine 20 years from now.
Well,
what would be language?
Mr. Joseph, I am happy that he brought this up, because that is what I've been trying to do whilst I was an educator at the Rosa Primary. That is what I tried to do. And I was so fascinated when I would hear my little grade 3s, 4s, and 5s say, this is our home language. And I said, this one I'm speaking, what is it? This is standard English. And I would just look at them and say, yes, you all got it. This is the tool. So what do you do with it? When do you use it? And if you can go into the world knowing that, you are educated. This is what true education is all about.
Someone's on the line. Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller. You're live.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening to you, sir.
And your panel. If you had in a room with 5 West Indians, okay, Trinidad, Bajan, Antiguan, and they spoke to you, you could tell which one was from where, right?
That's correct. Yes.
If the same people wrote you a letter, would you be able to tell which one was from where?
That would be a little difficult. That would be a bit difficult if they wrote you. If they wrote you, unless the person grip on the standard is very bad, so the person might put WIF for with instead of with. Yeah, but otherwise, if they are educated people, they know how to spell and everything like that, it would be difficult. But listening to their idiolect would be different. And I don't know many of you all have seen that movie, My Fair Lady, with Mr. Higgins.
Yes.
I don't know many of you all saw that, where Mr. Higgins was able to stand and listen to you speak, and he would be able to place you, he said, a mile within where you lived. And that's what a good linguist does. And that's what I like about linguistics. That's what I like about linguistics, because you are able to listen. Oh, he's a Trini. This one is a Bajan. This one is a Jamaican. This one is a Lucian.
Well,
and this one is a Dominican.
I saw the movie with Rex Harrison.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's one of my favorite movies as a linguist.
Yeah.
So going back to my point last week, Duff, that language is, the purpose of language is for communicating, right? So
yes,
I guess the value of the articulation, pronunciation, even the grammar, it depends on the application. So where you use it, is it in speaking? Is it in poetry? Is it in for letter writing, for example? That's where the differentiation comes in. You understand? So there's a standard applied to.
I believe it has to do with the setting. because
The
Paul
application,
Kings
right.
wrote quite a bit of poetry for us in his Trinidadian Creole. And if you're a person who sits and listens to Paul King Douglas, and you enjoy his Trini Creole when he speaks in it.
Jamaican, right? Jamaican. Paul Kins?
So,
Trinidadian? Paul Kins, yeah.
Paul Kins is Trini. Paul Kins is Trini.
Trini.
So it is not even like what key you are using, because in linguistics we love to talk about the key. What key you want to bring across a message? What key are you using? Are you going on the radio? Are you texting? Are you using you writing an email? What key are you using? So it's not even about the key that he's using, but it has to do with the context that
right,
he's using.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think in the 21st century, the education system must move away from teaching children what to learn or providing them with what to learn. There's no shortage of information. You can find anything you want to, and focus more on how you apply all of that information, how you use it to your benefit. Would you say that would be a better application or better use of the language?
I would think so. And in as 21st century learners, the educators are not supposed to be the sage on the stage. They're supposed to be the guide on the side, where you help to facilitate learning. So it's not about, before they would just stuff everything into your head, and it's about regurgitation. It's about learning by rote. This is out of the window. Now you are there to facilitate, because even within your class, you are going to find the gifted and talented students. What are you going to do? Are you going to restrict them to what was supposed to be taught for the day when you see that this student is ready to fly? So you are just there as a facilitator. You are there as a guide, not the sage on the stage, the one with all the knowledge. No, you're not. This is not how it is anymore.
It's more about thinking smart than sounding smart.
What a changing world, boy.
And it's about creating an avenue.
Yes.
So you can really excite your learners to learn, and they might even be able to come back and show you what they have learned.
And be creative.
Creativity is important.
Thank you.
And using your initiative.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Cecil.
Yeah, thank you. Doc, the world for me, we talk about evolution, but a few years ago we heard the word globalization, and you can sense the language itself is now becoming globalized. Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller.
Yes, Cecil.
Yes.
Paul King is a Grenadian by birth.
What's that?
A Grenadian by birth.
You have feedback on your...
No, he said that Paul Green is a Grenadian by birth.
Yes, Grenadian by birth.
Yeah, thanks for that information. Yeah. We are now living in a globalized world where things are closer to each other.
But let me remind you that you're being influenced by different cultures. Right now, you have the Chinese.
Right.
They're bringing their language with them. You have the Spanish who are living with us. They have brought their language with them. You have the French who are the Haitians who are with us.
The Haitians, yes.
And now you have another situation where the Kalinagos have their own language now. Do you know they have their own dictionary?
You're right, because a lot of us say, amigo, what's up? So we take a little Spanish and put it in.
That's called mixing. Yeah. That's called mixing you're doing. But I feel sorry for the Kalinago people, because their language went through linguicide, and it should have been a very vibrant language. That's what happens when the language is not passed down. So at a certain time, it is not spoken,
so
and then
I'm
it
happy,
becomes extinct.
and that's why I'm happy that DBS Radio every morning does it, where you have elders of the community of the Kalinago giving us the words, the various words and the meaning of them. So if you get onto our Facebook, you'll be able to see those words of the Kalinago, so it can help us. To
that is good. That is very good.
So for instance, there are a few villages that are Kalinago. I think Koliu is one.
That is good.
Yeah, so it's important.
Oh yes, Itasi.
Yeah, Itasi. So,
and these places there, yes. And the policy makers in the Ministry of Education, they need to ensure that the French Creole is taught in the schools, so that the French Creole does not die out. They need to ensure that this language, the same way we teach French, we teach Spanish, we should be able to teach French Creole. And I remember Felix Henderson, that was one of his pleas. Pleas. That was one of his cries. He was saying he's going to protect the French Creole so that the next generation will find it. So the policymakers can begin to think of that, putting it into the schools so that it becomes one of the disciplines that the students are exposed to.
And that's why I always compliment DBS, even before I was manager, to ensure that the Creole language stays alive by having this 2-hour program on DBS radio so that people can have the opportunity to do the exchange in the language, you know. We have found ourselves also doing some kind of competition in the Creole language.
Right,
to really
the spelling competition.
Right.
Yes,
So it's important that we, as you rightly stated, that we have to try to preserve that Creole language, because if we don't, maybe the next generation to come, that the Creole language would have been a dead one, you know,
extinct.
And so we have to really and truly work towards ensuring that the Creole language is spoken, and not just be spoken, but the expression of the Creole language is seen by the young people, and that's what.
And we know the English Creole is not going anywhere. As a matter of fact, if you don't give it a little, you don't block it a bit, as you said, it might take over the standard too, because we know we have students that are very, very intelligent, but they just do not like the standard English. In order for them to use it, you have to put them in a tight spot. You have to tell them, well, either this is for an exam, you are doing an oral exam, you need to speak the standard or whatever, then they will use it. But before I forget, I do not want to leave here. I see you have a word up here, Lakou. Lakou. It's nice to know that we are talking Creole, and there's a Creole word right there looking at us.
If you know me well, the Creole word would have been there. Lakou. You know? So,
in Jamaica, they say backyard.
Lakou, yeah, backyard. You know?
That's what they say, yes.
And what we have been doing in terms of the Lakou program, and I'm hoping that you will take the opportunity on a Sunday night to really follow through. Because what we did in terms of the Lakou is to make people understand the lives that we lived in the Lakou. For instance, River Street as a serious Lakou, where you used to have to pass in shortcuts.
Chascot.
Chascot.
That's how the Creole says it. Chascot.
From River Street into Hillsborough Street, from Hillsborough Street to Killeen Avenue, from Killeen Avenue to Cork Street, from Cork Street to reach to Astafans. You know what I'm saying?
And let me tell you that in River Street there are 2 island scholars during her time, the Edwards brothers.
Froggy's sons.
2 of his sons.
Right. And one became a doctor. That's what I was talking about when I said we had doctors there. One became a doctor.
One became a doctor, one became an engineer.
And we had a magistrate. I think it was Gilroy.
And
she was a magistrate.
And you also had a doctor, that boaster doctor.
Dr. Prevost.
Dr. Prevost.
Jonathan Prevost. living higher up your home.
Yes.
And then you had this Aaron guy. He too was a very intelligent young man.
Yes, Aaron.
There was also there's Pan Man. There was also
Pan Man was on the other side. Pan Man was Hillsborough Street.
Right. But you also had Afterly, what's his name?
Afterly. Oh yes, Afterly.
Yes. And you had the Thomas boys.
Yes, you had the Thomas brothers. Yeah.
Yeah,
you had I'm trying to remember that guy that lived in your area. Aaron was one of the Aaron's brothers, the short one. Garaway?
I'm trying. But River Street had quite a bright
yes. Quite a number of bright fellas, people, you know. And so
Troublesome, that's what I was trying to remember. Troublesome.
Troublesome. Dr. Prevost.
That lived on top of Telemark.
Boxer, athlete, you know. So
but even that fella is from River Street, the Speaker of the House of Assembly.
Yes. Isaac. Yeah, how could we forget that?
Mosopier.
Zafa Mosopier.
I grew up with Isaac.
Zafa Mosopier.
Right there, man.
River
Street have produced quite a
lot.
Intellect.
And when we talk about River Street, we talk about the eastern side of Independence Street of River Street. That's what we are talking about, and that's why I think Dr. Ansem Ansem is very proud to be part of that heritage of
yes.
that laku. You know, I remember that laku like yesterday. You know, guys, she might be able to tell us that.
But even Thomas Baptist.
Oh yes.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
How did you forget that?
How can you forget that in Adilaku there, man?
Oh yes.
So you know he was quite a character himself.
Mikey Riley, fireman.
Fireman.
From that area. There was this teacher, Miss Tavernier. No, she was in Hillsborough Street.
Miss
Murphy.
Miss Murphy.
Yeah, the lady of money.
Miss Murphy, yes. But she was good. She was one of our great teachers. Yeah, so even as we wrap up, I want to leave some thoughts with you that the educators need to engage code switching, where you allow the students to know that they can switch from one language to the next. You notice when we are talking formally, we are using the standard, and when we are cracking our jokes, we go straight into the Creole, whether we observe it or not. We go straight into the Creole. And they need to enable the students to recognize parallelism. As I said, juxtapose the two. Line them up against each other. Look at the past tense in the Creole. Look at the past tense in the standard. Look at the way we use negatives. I don't want anything. That's the standard. The Creole says, I do. There is no don't in the Creole. I don't want nothing. And notice there's no TH. There is FFING. I don't want nothing. So you have these two. Let them see, let them play with it, and let them know, so when I say that, I'm speaking the Creole. But when I say I don't want anything, and there's nothing wrong with the standard either. You just have to know when to use it.
And what is brilliant about this now, when we go into social media, we see quite a lot of that home language written.
No, do you know why? Because that's where we touch our root. That's where we want people to know I'm a Trini, I'm a Dominican, I'm a Bajan. We touch our roots. And I will just read you a little snippet of Paulkin's poem, This and That. You can always go on YouTube to get the long version. And he says, and I quote, for Creole, he used dialect, but in our time, we don't use dialects. I'm inserting the word Creole. For Creole, don't bother them. It's them that bother it. Because it living home is we that have to fit. That means our Creole is together with us. When you get angry and just in front of me, hey, you said, isn't that the nice little lady that say, please take a seat, go and have a drink? Because it's in us. It is in us. But
before I tell you, I would go and sit. Go and sit down.
And you not sit down, sit down. Go and sit down.
Sit down. Yeah.
We have to just live with it, know when to use it, know when it is appropriate, and embrace the two, and as a people, grow in a Creole environment where we teach our students to operate. Because one of those days, they will leave Dominica. They might leave Dominica and go somewhere else. They have to know the standard, which is the lingua franca. The standard is the lingua franca. They have to know that lingua franca, that when they go out there, it's not about mother and father and teeth. It's mother and father and teeth. So they have to know both of them so that they can survive as a holistic person.
Can you imagine you tell a child, go in the room and take my spectacles for me? Over that of telling the child, go and take my glasses for me.
But let me tell you something. Do you know that when my children were small, they were exposed to that? Because I was so much into my English. The one who introduced me tonight there, she would say, Mommy, I want to defecate. Because she knew the word she wanted to use was defecate. Can you imagine telling a little child, defecate? And she said, Mommy, I want to defecate. You understand? So they had their full share of the English language. And I'm sure now they're looking at it and say, wow, mommy has come a long way because right now mommy is embracing all languages.
Can you imagine? That mommy was the
Yes.
one in the house speaking the proper language. Now
Oh
she's
my
now
goodness.
she's
And they took that away with
she's
it.
encouraging home language now.
Home language, yes.
What she said, feficate. Mommy, I want to
Yes, because
feficate.
she's out to trafficate.
No, we and everybody say nu asa. Nu asa. We in that.
I'm that.
We in
I'm
that.
that.
Yeah.
That's what they say. I'm that.
I'm that.
But you can't go on a formal
Say,
podium.
Say,
Although the politicians use it.
Yeah.
And again, it's the language of convergence.
Yes.
When they want to come close to the people. So they use the language of the people.
Someone's on the telephone. Good. Hold on. Let me see someone on the line. Good evening.
Quick question.
Quick
Let
question.
me ask the doctor, though. Don't you think it makes it difficult for our students if they have to navigate the both of them? Because, for instance, if you're from Dominica, you're a rural Dominican, mother, father. I mean, like when you go out there and you say mother and father, they don't say mother and father. Like rural Dominicans just say mother and father. And how do you navigate that space, though? I just think it's important to teach them the standard English and let the other part of it just coming naturally. Nobody taught me Creole. I just learned Creole because I grew up in La Plaine. But I've learned how to separate the both of them. But
that is good what you're saying there. But you see, we are living in an age of awareness. We are living in an age of awareness where you need people to know. You need them to know that this language that you are speaking, that nobody taught you. Nobody taught you, but from the time you could open your mouth, that's the language you started speaking, unless you grew up somewhere in like Grand Bay. This is what we call the Creole English, and it is okay. It is okay. So the next time they hear their friends saying something, they won't laugh at them. They won't laugh at them. Some people say, "Come on, there."
You have made many people comfortable. Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller. You're live.
Yeah, good evening. I'm listening. I'm calling from Guadeloupe, and I'm so impressed with the level of the show. And that takes me to talk a little about the different pronunciation and terms that we have in some of the Francophone Creole. For example, I listened to St. Lucian Creole talk show, and I heard the people saying, "Ça fait science." And in Dominica, we would say, "Ça fait sens." You know, and science means science. You know, so I discovered that in Saint Lucia, "Ça fait sens" is "ça fait science." Now, in Guadeloupe, when I came in Guadeloupe at my very early age, I arrived there. I can remember working with a gentleman, and I said to him that James te ka parler kon tout à l'heure. And the man get vexed. Can't. Now, in Dominica, we say ante ka parler kon tout, but in Guadeloupe, you say ante ka parler d'eux, and kont means I was speaking against you. I was saying something
contrary.
bad about you. Yeah, so, and then another thing again that I discovered in our Creole and is that you go to the shop to buy an ounce of codfish, and then you would say in the Creole in Dominica, "Mokai gen on slamoui," but here in Guadeloupe we say "Mokai acheter on slamoui." So you see,
or even caller in Martinique, they say to you, "Moka jiwe ou, mokonet munsa." In Dominica, we would take the word jiwe to mean bad, but in Martinique, they tell you that I am telling you, I am sure that the person you're talking about, I know them.
Yeah, but in Dominica, in Grand Bay, where I am from, we use that word "moka jiwe ou, si ses enfants intel." You know, and I believe, you know, we have had that linkage within all of the islands and the Creole travel, but as the doctor was saying earlier on there, in all locations you have people with different accents. For example, I can recall somebody from Dalis is speaking to me in Rosa, and he say, "Nata ale." And in Guadeloupe, in Grand Bay, we would say "Mwen ka ale" or "Mon ka ale." You know, And in Delices, I discovered Yokadi na kale, and the short way for saying garçon, gan.
Oh,
I
okay.
can remember once being at the Ministry of Communication and Works, and a minister was referring to one of the secretaries then saying, "Where's them?" I said, "But what is the minister saying there as a minister?" But listening to the doctor, now I'm proud of being able to see that we can use the master's language in our own way and use it as a form of communication, as Brent was saying earlier on. And we don't need to be looked as being inferior because of, we would say that he cannot speak English because of he speaks the Creole or the Patois English.
Caller, you know what you said? Caller, you said something nice there. You said something nice a while ago.
Yeah.
Normally we say the Queen's language.
Yes.
And you did not say the Queen's language. First time I heard you said. First time I'm hearing this one. You said the master's language.
Well, the master's language is a general term.
No. I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. Because I'm just saying. Normally we say the Queen's language.
Oh, yeah, but the colonizers.
All right, but you're now talking about the colonizers, the master's language.
Okay, because
I like that.
Because I am located in a different area. I refer to the term our masters because we were all enslaved in the region. So this is why I stated that way. But I just want to say to you, I'm so impressed with most of the programs that you have been hosting, Cecil.
Thank you.
When you spoke to this gentleman from Portsmouth a few months ago, I think he was involved in the shipping area, and then he spoke
Neville Wade.
Yeah, and that he knew my mother who was a huckster as well. And I am here talking about the laku. It takes me back. It's a sense of nostalgia because in our area, in the rural areas, there were several lacus, and that's where we were waiting in the lacus. We were waiting for the young girls who would come, when we are dating our girls, and they would come in the lacu, escape through the back door, and come in the little lacu, and then we would have our real relationship, and then from there on we continue. So the lacu is something. It's a very important word in our culture, and I think laku is French, but I don't know if I'm right, Doctor. Laku ought to be a French word.
It should be, and it has a lot of connotations because when we think of the laku, you hear the Jamaicans sing about tenement yard. You hear them talk about people living together in a community. That is what the laku suggests. It also suggests like long ago people lived in small groups. To the point where they cooked with 3 stones. In the laku. In the laku. So the word itself has so many connotations associated with it.
Okay, lovely. And just to come to a conclusion, I can recall attending a meeting in Trinidad, and there was one of the main person who was hosting the meeting. And she was referring to the Caribbean, the English Caribbean, where we tend to look at English as our official language and as our national language, which is something which is wrong. And she was saying in Barbados, some of the students are even doing better in foreign languages because the impression that the system gives them is like English is their official language, it's a part of them. So they put less effort in studying the English. They will communicate, they will probably speak it properly, but they would do better in Spanish or French. So we ought to look at the Queen's language as a foreign language that will enable us to do better at school. Would you think so?
Thank you, caller.
Well, what I said, as I have said before, that we use it as, I would say, in tandem. You use it in tandem with your Creole. And if you use it in tandem with your Creole, then you can't go wrong because you are able to speak with the local people, you are able to communicate on an intimate level, and you are still able to speak in a formal setting. But what about l'argent? What about l'argent and l'argent?
Lahan.
That's the South. The South say Lahan. The South say Lahan.
I do not want to keep the too much guy. No, there are many people who want to call.
Yeah.
Depuis l'argent arrivé, moi I escape.
All right.
The other thing before I go, Cecil, permit me to say something that Tabu Combo, which is a famous Haitian group. There's a song they sang in the 70s, and it's called Kilang Ukafelamu La Ukafelamu. So in other ways, love does not having love with your lady or having that type of sexual relationship with, excuse me, everybody
doesn't have language.
But let me
doesn't have a language.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But before the doctor come on, let me just say something to her. Doctor, here is that. When dealing with people, let us remember we are not dealing with creatures of logic. We are dealing with creatures of emotions. So when we speak language, we are really evoking emotions, feelings. The language evokes feelings.
You know, Doctor, before we used to hear quite a lot of how I say it, awa, to say no. That's another Creole. Awa. The double words.
Yeah,
awa.
We say it twice.
You know, like to say no, what you're saying doesn't make sense.
Emphasis, emotions.
Yes, to show emotions. You know.
Yeah,
no, sir.
yeah, and there was
no,
this
sir.
one that came up. This one that came up. Dapueyu.
Yeah.
What was the meaning of that?
Dapueyu. That's Dapueyu.
You're thinking of yourself.
You're thinking of yourself, boy. Dapueyu.
You're thinking you're bigger than
it's
me.
like an expression. You think you're more than me.
You're more than me.
Yeah, Dapueyu.
It could have mean that's your business, sweet. Like when you say that's your business. Dapueyu, that's
yes,
but
yeah.
That's your business. Whatever you get, you get.
Yeah.
No, but
Dapueyu.
You know where I learned this one, Dapueyu? Rose liked to say that to me. It's from Dodan, one of the languages they use. Dapueyu mean you think you're greater than me. That's what you said. Dapueyu. You know, that's a language when it means that you're not greater than me.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, sir.
Yeah,
you know, like no, sir.
No, sir.
You know.
And you know, sir came from sir.
Yes. Someone has the telephone is going crazy. Let's take that other caller. Good evening to you, caller. Your live.
Hey, good evening, sir. Thank you for taking my call again. Great show. Always creating some interesting segments, some real interesting shows. And tonight is an example of your great tribute into Dominican culture and just understanding who we are as a people. The reason I'm calling is just that it's just so interesting, and we're just so excited about this show. Is that my daughter graduated from Boston University with a degree in neuroscience with a minor in linguistics. And this fall, she's going back to study or to research language science and to hear the nuances. And she's just fascinated by just listening to what you guys talking about. And I think it's because her parents are from Dominica and with the language, and she was just so fascinated with the language that she studied that, and she's going back to it.
She's home with you. She's home with you. She's
yes, she is.
Well, let us speak on her own. Let us hear her voice. Call her.
Sure. Let me get her.
And I'm sure that Doc will speak with her because that's your student, Doc. I'm sure. You're going to allow her to be your student.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I'm going to hand it over to her.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Good evening to you, caller.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, your dad just said that you're very much impressed.
Yes.
Tell us what makes the program so interesting to you.
About your program?
Yes, about the program tonight.
About language.
Yes, it's very interesting because I heard that one of the professionals here works in linguistics and has a PhD in linguistics. So that's very cool to me because I started off doing neuroscience and found my love for linguistics and language in that way afterwards. So, and obviously with my parents being from DA, the language and the Creole and everything has always been very interesting to me. So, yeah.
I think one of the things that you should try to do, and I'm going to put Dr. Ansem on the spot, that you should try to get her number and to communicate with her because I'm sure that she'll give you a wealth of knowledge.
Yes, that would be lovely.
Well, I just want to make a little correction. My PhD is in leadership in higher education. My master's is in linguistics, but I'm happy to find someone else who loves linguistics because linguistics is so fascinating. When you listen to people speak and you hear how they put their words together, the nuances, the intonation in their voices, it's just so beautiful that you can just stand and say, this person is either the person. This sometimes I ask myself, is he a Trini or is it Lucian? Especially if I'm traveling, it's just a beautiful thing. So I'm happy to hear that you are studying linguistics. It's very lovely, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Oh, it was so fascinating.
I mean, tonight was well interested,
Well,
especially when we can bridge culture.
well, when you can bridge culture in
Yeah,
terms of
and-
the language.
yeah.
And it's very important because
Someone's on the line again. Good evening to you, caller.
Good evening.
When you got that pro mean that is your business, you know. That pro, that what it means, that is a
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Yes.
No,
yes,
but
yes.
one of the things I want to say, what I find even within my space, I find people in Funkley, people in Pottersville, people in Upper Goodwill, people in Baytown. You know, sometimes they have a different English. I find that fascinating with the way they pronounce words, depending on where they grew up, the environment, and who they listen to. So if you were let's say for instance, in a particular sport in Upper Goodwill, you were taught a special way to speak, standard. But if you were down there in Pottersville, where you hear your parents communicating in English and Patois, my mother spoke both in English and Patois one time, you know. So I had to try to listen to what she was actually saying, because she could not speak everything in English. Have you ever found that, Doctor?
Yes, I have had some, especially the elderly. When I interact with the elderly, sometimes they speak the English, but if in case whatever they want to say, they are better able to say it in their French Creole, then they use their French Creole. It's a matter of communication. And I wanted to say before I forget, language is power. Language is power. When a Spanish person comes into your environment and he's with another Spanish person like himself, and he speaks his language and you're standing there dumbfounded, you don't know what he's saying. That's the power that he's using. So that is why we do not allow our French Creole to die. Because when you go overseas as a Dominican and you meet another Dominican, it's so beautiful. When you can begin to speak to that person, and if you want to say something private, you can go right ahead, right in the midst of everybody.
And you know, another word that comes to mind, you can use it in both expression for sadness and joy. Messier is how you do the expression. Messier.
All right.
You know?
It's how you,
Yeah.
it's how you say it.
It's how you say it, you know? Let's take
And even for astonishment, you say, Messier? Like,
Yeah.
oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's intonation.
Yeah.
Intonation has to go with it.
Good evening to you, caller.
Yes, both power and power.
You're vibrating.
You're-
You're listening to yourself.
That's how it is. Both sound and power. So all words have power apart from the song.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, so as we come to
close?
the end of the program, Doctor, I really want to say thank you very much for tonight. I think next week I'm going to try to get Dr. Akpa. Is she a doctor? No, I'm going to try to get Mrs. Akpa. Who herself French Creole, you know, to help us in the whole discussion of French Creole. So if I can get Dr. Akpa to come. You see, I'm seeing last call, but I'm seeing two callers on the line. Let's take these two callers, right, Doc? Is that okay with you?
That's okay. We'll take the two last ones.
Yeah, good evening to you, caller.
Hi, Cecil. Again, speaking about Creole, I think what we have been losing as a people, or what we are losing, is our oral traditions. For example, we're now talking about speaking Creole, but how about our parables in Creole? That has all been lost. The people before were not as educated, but they were able to impart wisdom by using these oral traditions. For example, a parent would tell a child, c'est copain qui fait quoi panitet. You understand? What would that mean to What would that mean? You know the amount of power that is in that parable, but we have lost that. You don't hear people using those parables anymore.
Mama mange wezin dans afan glasi.
That's right. So where are these? How do we maintain these oral traditions? For example, Tim and Court.
Tim washes.
Yes, I'd sit around my grandmother's bed at night, and she would tell us Tim, and we'd be rolling over, peeing ourselves basically with laughter. But you only hear those things once a year at National Day, and even then, those have disappeared. So how do we as a people maintain these oral traditions and pass them on to our kids? Because there's a lot of value in them.
That's a great point. And don't forget the English version. The Proverbs, when they say, a stitch in time saves 9. And as you make your bed, so you will lie in it. So we also have the Proverbs in the English as well. That comes.
Thank you, caller.
Last caller.
Yeah.
Last caller. Good evening to you, caller. You're the last caller. Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Joseph, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Speak up, please. Speak up.
Speak up.
Hello?
Yes,
Hello,
speak up.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, no.
No.
Okay. Good evening to Dr. Ansem.
Good evening. Good evening. I know that voice.
I want to say this is a very, very interesting program. And I have listened to Dr. Ansem speak about English and linguistics for the past 30 years. And I must say that I have learned a lot from her. I love her passion for the language. And tonight have been amazing. So I just want to continue to congratulate her and say, Dr. Ansem, well done. I am listening.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was the final call.
And I want to say thank you to Mr. Joseph, because as the last caller said, I have always been passionate about the English Creoles. Always passionate about it. And most of the times when people talk of Creole in Dominica, they talk of the French Creole. So I would always tell people there are other Creoles. But very few would listen. And I would even tell them the reason why our students are getting so much problem with writing the English, it is because they have this fight going on. They are wired to speak the Creole, the English, but then the standard has to be used. So if they are allowed to accept both of them, if they are allowed to see both of them, just that I use this one in this particular instance, and when I'm in formality, I use the standard, then it will kind of give them a little more leeway. They will be more relaxed when they are using the language, when they are communicating. But I really need to thank you all for assisting me in being able to put this out there for educators, for policymakers. As I told you, it's already in our curriculum that students need to be able to use their home language, and you encourage them. But then it's just the Creole itself, it needs to be put into effect that the French Creole be taught in the schools as well, so that it doesn't die, especially in the urban areas. So I just want to say I had fun tonight. I had fun. I really enjoyed it.
I really want to say thank you first to Anna Winston.
I know.
I remember when I had a conversation with Anna on Monday, and I said, Anna, I had Dr. Steinberg Henry with me talking language and the issues of culture and trying to put the connection of events as to what happened with language and the works. And I said to her, you know what, I really need someone that can, and I requested of her to come on the program. And she said, you know what, I can get you someone better. And I asked her,
and that's my colleague. That's my colleague and sister. We grew up together as well.
And she told me Dr. Cyrilla Ansem. I said, first of all, I said to her, I didn't know that she was a doctor. She told me, yeah, she is, and so on. And I got excited. And immediately she gave me your number. I immediately got in contact with you, and immediately you said yes. So I really need to say thank you.
While you're on that, I need to commend the nation. I need to commend the people of Dominica for celebrating with me, because in January I received my doctorate and the entire country of Dominica celebrated. Everywhere I passed, even people I did not know, they told me congratulations. And I told them, whatever it is you want to do, go ahead and do it. Chase that dream. Don't let age be a factor. Don't let anything be a factor. And so I just want to commend my people, my Dominica people, my Waitu Kubuli people. Thank you for celebrating with me. And thank you, Mr. Joseph and Mr. Adams, for tonight. It was wonderful.
And I must say to people that you are dressed in Creole.
Yes.
Your chain,
You're
your
very
earring,
observant. You're very observant.
your chain, your earring, and your, what do you call this?
The headpiece.
And your headpiece, all in Creole. Beautiful.
Yes.
And I really want to say thank you. Yeah, I really want to say thank you for tonight, and I'm sure that quite a number of people would have a different understanding as to what it is in terms of the Creole English, and even when you made mention to me about the Creole English, I was trying to wonder where we were going to go with this discussion, and tonight I saw the success of this discussion, and I really want to say to you thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And I give Abba Yahweh thanks, because he's the one who makes all things possible. And he's the one who put it in you to have this program so that our people can be sensitized. And we don't only want it to stay here in this program. We want to take it to the classrooms. We want to take it to the boardrooms. We want to take it to the MOE, or the Ministry of Education, so that they can, when they begin to draft their policies, they can recognize this English Creole as a formidable language that isn't going anywhere. We just have to embrace it and help our students to use it along with the standard. Thank you very much.
Well, it was a pleasure hearing you. It seems to me you have elevated yourself. My goodness, it was just a pleasure to see how you have moved a couple notches higher. Thank you for embracing us with your discussion tonight. Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Yes. I just want to say to your husband, thank you for giving us I want to say to him,
I know.
Thank you for your time.
Well,
you have to be thankful too.
Well, boy.
That
Tigason, I say he listening, but you have a powerful wife there.
Tigason, you're in trouble.
Mr. Joseph, I've been listening. From the beginning. I've been listening. I listen to all the callers. I've been challenged with that very same language thing. My wife is so, every day.
Don't hide behind the mic.
Come on.
Let's see your face.
Come out and let's see
he doesn't have shit.
Oh, okay, all right. Tigaso will always be Tigaso. Tigaso will always be Tigaso. Even at your home
Thank you so much for that wonderful program.
Yes, thanks, man, Tigaso.
For allowing your wife to be.
He's in his Creole-ness.
I hopefully tomorrow, Tigaso, I'll see you at the Pottersville Savannah playing cricket.
Yeah, hopefully.
Oh, yeah, I plan to come, I wasn't well, so I stayed away for some time, but
yes,
much better.
Your friend Connie is there. Your friend Connie is there.
Yes. All right, then.
Okay, take care, my
Thank
brother.
you.
Thanks.
All the best. Thanks again, Doctor. Yeah. And God bless you. And Yahweh bless you.
Yahweh bless you as well. Pleasant night.
Same here. Bye-bye. Yes.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah, we were speaking to... Let's just take that caller. The doctor is no longer here,
but we can always...
Let's take that caller. Yeah, let's see what you have to say, caller. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, sir. I want to lift you up. Yes, you and Mr. Adams.